Welcome, everyone. We're going to call our meeting back to order with a roll call from our city clerk, Kathy Valdez.
The record shall reflect that all members are present.
I'll ask our city attorney, Walter Chung, to bring us out of closed session.
The City Council took no reportable action in closed session today.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Melendez will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance today.
Please rise, put your hand over your heart, and begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now, our city clerk, Kathy Valdez, has some procedural items to cover.
Thank you, Mayor. In accordance with the Brown Act, I'd like to announce that as a result of convening simultaneous meetings, the members of the Buena Sanitation District will receive compensation of $147.75 for the district meeting pursuant to Buena Sanitation District Ordinance 2006-1. I would like to remind everyone that the Vista Municipal Code requires members of the public to observe order and decorum at the meeting and to conduct themselves in a courteous manner. The ordinance was adopted to allow for public input and to facilitate city business without disruption of the meeting. Applause is appropriate for items listed under the presentation portion of the agenda only. Students wishing to receive credit for attending this evening's meeting must stay for a minimum of 1 hour. However, we ask that you stay for the completion of an item rather than leaving in the middle of a discussion. When you are ready to leave, you may ask one of the staff members at the back of the room to sign your paper. Thank you.
To speak on an item on tonight's agenda, please fill out a speaker slip with the number of the item you'd like to speak on and give it to the clerk, secretary, staff here at the dais. Speaker slips are available on the table just outside the council chambers. For members of the public participating via Zoom, you may use the raise your hand feature to indicate when you'd like to speak, or press star 9 on your touchtone phone. We will announce when to raise your hand or press star 9 if you'd like to make a comment on the specific item being discussed. Speakers will each have 3 minutes to address the council. We'll go to City Manager John Conley for approval of tonight's agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Presentation P1 is being moved to the next meeting because our firefighter of the year couldn't be with us tonight, so we'll recognize him on the 28th. Otherwise, the agenda is unchanged. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring us to item P2, the Quality of Life Study on Melrose Drive, presented by Maria Joliffe. Good evening. If you press the red button right in front of you and bring that microphone right up to your mouth.
There we go.
Thank you.
How's that?
Better. Thank you.
All righty. Good evening, Mayor Franklin, council members, neighbors. I want to thank council members O'Donnell and Contreras for inviting me here this evening. This project is a thesis in a Master of Public Health program at Imperial College London. I'll define some of these terms and tell you about what I did and what I found. A year ago, I was stuck in traffic on Melrose Drive at 3:50 on a Thursday. I began to wonder about this road. Roads are a significant source of air pollution, and air pollution is associated with asthma. County data shows Vista has higher rates of asthma than Carlsbad and San Marcos. I wondered if the drop in 2020 had to do with empty roads during COVID lockdown. But this data is reported as groups, with no way to know if the people with asthma live near roads. I wondered how roads affect our quality of life. Quality of life goes beyond simple health to consider well-being and the ability to participate and enjoy life. Health-related quality of life is how people rate their own health. So a survey can be used to begin to examine how roads affect quality of life. Social determinants of health is a concept to describe things other than healthcare that affect our health, one of which being environment. And the Healthy People 2030 program contains objectives about environment that are related to roads, such as reduced vehicle deaths, asthma attacks, and unhealthy air, and increased active travel. But how specifically do roads affect health? Road noise affects daily activities through annoyance and sleep disruption, triggering a chronic stress response in the body. Even short-term exposure to known car emissions, nitrogen dioxide, and fine particulate matter increase the risk of dying prematurely, regardless of disease. There's no safe level of air pollution, and all cars, including electric vehicles, create tire, brake, and road dust that researchers in a past study have found in homes near roads. This study took place in Shadow Ridge with the goal to gather baseline data in the 2000 block of South Melrose, the red dot. Because past studies found perception of pollution different from actual pollution, interviews gathered people's awareness of sound and air quality. Along with experiences of Melrose and the Quality of Life Survey, answers were looked at by how far participants lived from major roads. Fine particulate matter was measured for 1 year using a purple air sensor. I also examined a data conversion to approximate what government sensors would collect. Note that there is no assumption that everyone in this area has the same air quality. Sound was measured at different time periods using the NIOSH app. A-weighted decibels approximate what the human ear can hear, and this is reported as dBA. Vista's noise ordinance is not specific to road noise, but has a nighttime limit of 45 to 55 decibels depending on zoning. The World Health Organization recommends a bedroom be 30 decibels or less to ensure good sleep. This is the level of a whisper. The interviews consisted of the Quality of Life Survey, followed by these questions. People were asked a general question about air quality in Shadow Ridge, and then specifically about air quality on Melrose. People were asked general questions about sound around and in their home, asked whether they can hear road noise with windows closed or open, and whether sound interrupts or wakes them. Finally, people were asked about their experience of Melrose, and active travel and commuting, and if kids are safe. For air quality, particulate matter is measured in cubic meters of air. The annual average purple air was above the EPA limit, but even with conversion, it was above the World Health Organization limit. Participants in the study were not aware of air quality unless they had direct experience of issues. Further study of emissions is needed, as well as increased public awareness. For sound, LAEQ is the average level, and Lmax is the loudest level in the time period. Participants were more aware of noise than air quality. The nighttime average above 71 decibels is far above Vista's ordinance and the World Health Organization recommendations. Traffic noise is a serious problem, waking people along Melrose and even on Lupine Hills. For the survey, the blue bars generally show higher quality of life scores for those living farther from the road. The orange and purple bars were all people who reported noise issues and being awakened. Perceptions of Melrose were striking, with many participants bringing up accidents which left an impression on them. Participants only walk on Melrose to get to quieter streets and parks. Speeding, distractions, and other bad driving behaviors were described. While traffic makes it difficult to get around, comments about safety indicated people feel locked into driving. This study found factors which may lower quality of life, including road noise, awakenings from road noise, and safety issues on the road, while air quality can also use improvement. Policy discussions and interventions are needed to make Melrose safer and quieter, to encourage active travel, reduce emissions, and improve quality of life. There are 2 more items from the interviews which help shape recommendations. These are the answers when I asked participants about their dream commute, including no commute, walking, biking, or public transportation. Reducing traffic is not simple, but not everyone wants to drive. And these are some reasons that people have to drive. In behavioral science, it's important to understand the barriers and facilitators for any behavior change. Some people will prefer to drive, but others would like to get out of their cars if they could safely get where they need to go. This means addressing safety and infrastructure. How can we make changes? Noise and safety can both be addressed with a lower speed limit, as the higher the speed, the louder the noise. Presently, tire noise is about 70 decibels. Noise enforcement for exhaust modifications should be looked at as well. More air data in more locations would increase our understanding of particulate and other traffic pollutants like nitrogen dioxide. Public awareness is needed to support change. In a past study, researchers Kelly and colleagues recommend cleaner vehicles, fewer vehicles, and a built environment that helps people get active. Getting people out of their cars means understanding what alternatives they would use and what needs to change for them to do it. What works in one neighborhood may not work in another neighborhood. Therefore, a workshop with residents. Other recommendations are improving transit, making communities walkable and then connecting them, and even exploring how work from home could be incentivized. There's more information on the website, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Councilmember O'Donnell.
This is not my bottle, so sorry about that. Maria, thank you so much for the presentation. I've had the opportunity to speak with you prior to this. Has it been made official? Are you a doctor yet?
Oh, it's a master's degree.
Oh, master's. I thought you were going for your doctorate before. I thought that's what we were talking about. But either way.
But if you'd like to make me a doctor, that's fine.
Well, one more thing to do. But no, I was very impressed when we spoke last time, so I'm very grateful that you came before us today to give this presentation. There's a couple things I did have questions about, and it's not the reality of, or rather not the data that you're presenting, but the area that you used, right? It's right at the bottom of the hill on Melrose. Is there any contributing factor for it to being in the valley that it's in that may create greater air quality issues?
It would appear so. In that area, the road is lower than the homes. You have kind of hills on both sides, and that could be trapping the air quality in there a little bit. There are other purple air sensors in the area that I was able to compare this sensor to. They were pretty close.
Yeah.
They were within, like say one is 20 and one's 25, sort of a thing. Yeah.
And then were you getting the same type of decibel readings or a consistent decibel reading from all of them as well? Because I know that there's like the fire station right down. This is not the question of your data. It's so I can understand it better, because I think everything you brought to us is very valuable and necessary to have. But I just want to make sure that I understand it, because I know if there's a fire station down there, I get every 10 minutes I have an aircraft flying over my home where I live. I'm sure that plays a factor into it. So I don't know if you could just speak a little bit to those things.
So I monitored the decibel levels as I was collecting it, especially at the beginning, to see what was going on. That's why I saw that the tire noise alone is 70 decibels. Then the motors are above that, right? I was careful to turn off my measurements if there was a siren going by. I also watched and listened if there was a plane, and watched the decibel meter to see how it was changing. It did not seem to affect it.
That's actually very good to know.
Yeah.
We just had a large discussion around Palomar Airport and their expansion, and I would love to know, and this might be a different discussion for another time, but the pollution contributing factors from jetliners and how they impact our quality of life here. So, the information you have you looked at any other areas or shared this information with other cities yet? I know it's relatively new information, but to try and craft policy, and what's the feedback been from them?
I have not shared it with anyone else. You are the first, since it was done in Vista. It's most important that I share it with you. This is the first time I've shared it.
Yeah. Well, those are all my questions. I just want to say thank you again. I think it's very valuable. Like I said, the information you're bringing to us, I'm certain that we're going to have a larger discussion about it in the very near future, and I appreciate all your hard work for it.
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you so much, Maria. First of all, thank you for taking a look at investigating some folks. We kind of just see what's going on, and we're like, wow, I wonder, it just seems kind of out of line, right? But you were able to take the time and really dig in and have this great baseline of data. And to my knowledge, I don't think we've ever done an air quality study, have we?
Only for specific development projects, not citywide.
Okay. Yeah, it's a really interesting proposal, right? If we were to do, some different sites throughout Vista and compare, where there's a lot of road traffic to other areas that don't have that, just to see. One of the recommendations that you brought up was lowering the speed limit. That's something that I hope that we can continue to have discussions about. I know we're going to talk about it, looking at AB 43 and reducing speeds, but we know that contributes to not only the noise, right, looking at your data, but also the safety aspect.
Right.
So, the word cloud, looking at that, it's pretty much summarizing everything. It's through the lens of public safety, right? And folks are not feeling safe. So, unfortunately, it's creating a sharp decline in quality of life. And potentially that's something that we can address in a lot of different ways. So I appreciate you bringing this forward. It's very unique to have a situation where we have a resident doing this type of scientific analysis. And I welcome other folks that may be doing the same thing to please come and start a conversation with your council members, because we might be able to present the data. But thank you again. I really appreciate your work.
You're welcome.
Just for the edification of the public, the Regional Air Quality Control Board, or Air Quality Control District, ACQD, does spend $120 million in the county of San Diego measuring air quality throughout the county. So I would encourage all of us to take a look at their reports and findings. I don't know if you consulted that agency for any data that they may collect in our area.
I talked to the Air Pollution Control District, and they were the ones that recommended an algorithm to do a data conversion so that it would be closer to the government sensors. The South Coast Air Quality Management District has done testing of various sensors, and purple air, they found, is pretty well correlated, but at low particulate levels can be biased high, and it might have to do with humidity. But that was the conversion, so that's why I used that conversion.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you so much for this presentation. I absolutely see how this data could be useful to the city of Vista from an environmental perspective, from a community development and capital improvement perspective, right, our built environment. And also, I was really interested in some of the survey that you completed around people's preferred commute. And I see that as even an economic development opportunity. And so, I know we're receiving this information and not having a discussion now, but it'd be really interesting to see what our city can do, maybe to work with employers or do legislative advocacy so that we can see more work from home options, because that's clearly people want to be able to stay close-knit in their own community and avoid a commute at all if they can, build their livelihood around that. So I really appreciate that, all this data that you presented, and I think it's very useful for us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
All right. That's going to bring us to our oral communications opportunity. Any member of the public may address the City Council on agency-related matters not on the agenda by requesting to speak during this section. If you're participating via Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature. Press *9 if you'd like to speak. The number of speakers that will be heard during this segment is limited to 10. Any remaining speakers will be heard under the second oral communications item if there are more than 10 that desire to be heard now. And we do have a number of speakers here. We have 2 in person and 2 on Zoom. And I'm going to point out, when we get to the consent calendar, we do have about 8 different speed bumps that we're going to consider tonight. And I know that probably we have some number of speakers to speak on those. If you want to register your, everybody's in favor of the speed bumps. If we call your name, if you don't want to come forward, then we won't pull them off the consent agenda. We'll just register your support, or you can come forward and speak, and we'll remove them from the consent item agenda and have a separate vote on them. But at this time, I'd like to ask our oral communication speakers to come forward. When I call your name, please come forward and sit in the front row. Be prepared to speak when your name is called. We'll begin with Rachel Chiwai, followed by Kevin Alvarado. Rachel Chiwai, it's your turn. You have 3 minutes.
Testing, okay. Good evening, members. My name is Rahel Chiwai, and I am a resident of Vista and student at Mission Vista High School. I am here today to showcase my strong support for authorizing smoke-free policies in multi-unit housing in our community. The harmful impacts of secondhand smoke have been prevalent in my life and countless others due to a lack of enforcement policies organized by property owners. The health risks of secondhand smoke pose to all individuals, especially infants and children, elderly citizens, pets, and especially those with critical health conditions. In multi-unit housing, preventing secondhand smoke is easier said than done. Many apartment complexes, including mine, have policies against smoking on the property. However, those policies are not enforced by landlord or property managers, which puts many people at risk for experiencing symptoms such as asthma, migraines, respiratory infections, or even worse, developing chronic diseases such as lung cancer. I have experienced many instances where the smell and fumes of marijuana or tobacco have permeated through my vents and into my bedroom, bathroom, and living room. Since apartments are typically smaller than houses, it's easier for the fumes to spread quickly throughout the small space. Furthermore, these fumes are impacting my pets along with my family members' overall health, which raises a public health concern. Enforcing a smoke-free policy in Vista could help provide residents of multi-unit housing access to clean air and promote a healthier living environment. Additionally, smoke-free housing not only benefits the tenants, but also landlords and property managers, as they could avoid having to clean the residue on surfaces from the continuous usage of tobacco products. Not to mention, it would enhance the safety of multi-unit housing in Vista. I ask you all to take this very important step toward protecting the health of our residents and ensuring that Vista is a healthier place to live. Thank you for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you. Kevin Alvarado.
Hello, good evening to all. So I come from Vista High School, and throughout my high school journey.
Kevin, just a moment. Whoever's phone that is, if you want to go ahead and silence it, we'd be grateful. Oh, very good. Go ahead, please.
All right. Sorry. So every time, or when I go to my high school, Vista High School, I always walk on the same street, which is Anza Avenue, which is where my home street is, and then I always walk down to East Vista Way, all the way down to Panther Way. And every time I pass through my street, there is always some sort of glass bottle, cigarettes, vape products, or just in general, just waste on my street. And every time I have to walk down, I always have to try to avoid the glass because it would stick on my feet or on my shoe. And every time I look at, every time I just look in like, if I look close enough, there will be either cigarettes, vape products, or stuff like that on my street. And all I ask is that we be a little bit more vigilant in terms of just looking for waste like that, because if somebody were to, let's say, go on the street and just see that, what would they say about that street? Would they say something negative about that? Or like, in general, it would just be harmful for like pedestrians to be there. And also on like Panther Way, I would also spot like the same problem on my street, which is just glass shards all over the place, cigarette butts, and yeah, all I ask is that there be like some sort of like just a general sweep of like nearby streets in like schools specifically, because like I'm tired of just seeing glass and vape products, as it just shows something about our community that just impacts like people negatively, in terms of like if somebody new were to come to our city, would they think that we're just like a bunch of people who just are just littering all over the place. And that is pretty much all I have to say. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And now we're going to go to Zoom. Our first commenter is Barbara Gordon. Then we'll go to Becky Rapp. Barbara.
Good evening. I wanted to share with you the California Department of Public Health newly released report on marijuana and their recommendations prepared by independent panel of 13 scientists and clinicians experts. They document the fact that high potency marijuana has overtaken California and the national marijuana market, and it summarizes the serious association with health risk, particularly with vulnerable populations. These findings and recommendations are important because they highlight the importance that politicians and policymakers understand and act on the fact that the marijuana market in California is very different than it was decades ago, when many of these people saw the drug as largely harmless. To address these risks, the panel recommends 20 targeted policy actions. Here are just some. They include capping THC content, fully prohibiting flavored inhaled products, requiring plain packaging, strengthening and enforcing the marketing restrictions on marijuana and products from being advertised, taxing based on the THC potency, strengthening and funding public health education on the risk of marijuana use. These findings underscore the need for stronger consumer protection and policy framework in the marijuana markets. Cities have passively allowed the shift of these high potency products, which has caused significant harm, especially to young people. I urge the city to realize it is time to change course. Thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. Becky Rapp, followed by Megan Stewart.
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. My name is Becky Rapp. I'm a parent and a public health educator concerned with the marijuana industry's blatant marketing to young people with colorful packaging, fruity flavors, and celebrity endorsements. Last month, a lawsuit was filed against the #1 marijuana brand in California, Stizzy. A former user claims their products caused him to suffer cannabis-induced psychosis, or CIP. The plaintiff was an elite high school athlete when he started using Stizzy's products, hoping they would provide him with some relief from his sports-related pain, stress, and anxiety. Unfortunately, the results were far from what he anticipated. The plaintiff experienced acute psychosis, including paranoia, hallucinations, and delusional behavior, which led to multiple hospitalizations, treatment, and medication to manage his mental health challenges, completely derailing all of his athletic dreams. The lead attorney stated the case is to seek justice for the client and to raise awareness of the harms associated with these high-potent vape products that have been marketed in ways that seem healthy and safe, especially to young people. Numerous studies prove that those who use marijuana while their brains are still developing are 4 times more likely to develop chronic psychosis. The World Federation of Biological Psychiatry states the greater the dose and the earlier the age of exposure, the greater the risk. Residents must be educated regarding the harms of marijuana products. Warning labels should be required, and stricter regulations on advertising and messaging must be implemented. The plaintiff in this case is not alone, but represents thousands of young people who have already suffered greatly as they've bought into the lies the industry tells. Thank you.
Megan Stewart.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. I'm here today to highlight that January is Substance Use Disorder Treatment Month, which sheds light on the ongoing public health crisis of addiction in our community. As we face the challenges of addiction and substance use disorder treatment, it's important to recognize that prevention is the key to protecting future generations from the devastating effects of such disorders. Right now, our youth are at risk. Marijuana and tobacco e-cigarettes with enticing flavors like candy, mint, and fruit have become a gateway to nicotine and marijuana addiction for teens. Despite California's ban on the sale of flavored tobacco products, young people are still finding ways to access both flavored and unflavored e-cigarettes. A recent report from the CDC Foundation and Truth Initiative revealed a staggering 47% increase in e-cigarette sales nationwide between 2019 and 2023, with more than 80% of these sales for flavored products designed to attract young people. These products, often illegally sold or obtained online, contain dangerously high levels of nicotine, sometimes equivalent to several cartons of cigarettes in a single device. This crisis demands urgent attention. While policies like California's ban on flavored tobacco products are critical, they must be paired with robust enforcement and youth education to address the gaps that allow flavored e-cigarettes to reach our kids. The 2024 National Youth Tobacco Survey shows that nearly 40% of young e-cigarette users vape frequently, and millions remain at risk of addiction. By strengthening enforcement, educating retailers and communities, and equipping young people with the tools to resist these products, we can build on the progress already made. Prevention is the foundation of treatment and breaking the cycle of addiction here in Vista. Thank you so much for the time.
Thank you. That'll bring us to the end of oral communications. We'll now close the opportunity for oral communications during this meeting. That'll bring us to our consent calendar. The recommendations on the consent calendar will be enacted in one motion unless an item is removed from the calendar. Any member of the public may remove an item by requesting to speak on the item, or by using the raise your hand feature on Zoom, or by pressing *9. Items removed from the consent calendar will be considered immediately following the adoption of the calendar. We do have 18 consent items this evening, and I will, let's see. Okay, and we have speakers on 3 of the speed bumps. So if you would like, when I call your name, if you want to come forward to speak, if you come forward, then we will remove that item from the consent agenda, give you the opportunity to speak about it, and we'll have a separate vote. Or if you do not come forward, we'll proceed with approving it on the consent agenda item. Before we do that, though, we have Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I'll just move approval of the consent calendar.
Thank you. And Councilmember Fox.
There we go. I'd like to pull item C9 from the consent calendar.
Okay. So then we have speakers that have requested on item C10, Marilyn Lamb, if you'd like to have a separate vote and a discussion, and Deborah Kohler, if you want to come forward at this time, or if you don't, we'll approve it on consent. We can register your support, both of you, in favor. Thank you very much. Item C11, we had Eliza Valdovinos, who has registered support in favor. If you come forward at this time, we'll remove this. Otherwise, we can approve it on consent. Okay, you'd like to be heard? Yes. So we'll remove item C11. And then item C13, Neil Bissonette. Good to see you, Neil. And if you'd like to have a discussion on this item, yes? Okay, very good. Then we'll remove those items. So we will entertain the balance of the consent agenda with the exceptions of item C9, C11, and C13. And then also we had Renee Umberger would like to be heard on C9. So if you would go ahead and come forward and be ready to speak. So with that, we have a motion and a second on the balance of the consent agenda. So please cast your votes. Oh, did we not have a second? Councilmember Fox, would you second? Very good.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Thank you, Mr. Jung. That motion is passed unanimously. That'll bring us to item C9. Councilmember, would you like to hear from the public speakers on this item before you speak? So we'll begin with Renee Umberger on this item. If you heard your name called, if you would go ahead and come forward and be ready to speak. Thank you so much.
Hello, Mayor and council members. Renee Umberger. I live on Casper, right adjacent to the Civic Center. And every morning, I walk my dogs and take my life into my hands. Myself and my fellow neighbors. I'm joined with some of the neighbors who live on Alta Vista, who experience people driving 40 miles an hour on a street with no sidewalks. Some of the areas to the edge of the road, there's not even a place to step off. Like we have to jump into a hedge or jump up onto a hill. So it's super dangerous. And I guess I'm just a little bit concerned that it was pulled. So I'm assuming that someone has complained about the speed humps. And so I'm hoping that you will listen to the people on Alta Vista, all of those folks who signed, all of us who are desperate to have some safety on that road so we can walk with our families, with our dogs, children, the kids going to school safely. So appreciate it. And I also, once again, want to say I'm so impressed with the engineering folks, Sam and Ollie, and the whole system you guys have set up. Deputy Mayor Melendez, I believe that was your bill that got this through a couple of years ago, was it? No, am I wrong? Everybody, but it's so great. You guys have done a wonderful thing for Vista, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
We also have Rachel Beld on Zoom that would like to be heard on item C9. Rachel, are you there? Hi, Rachel.
I'm here. Hi, good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Rachel Bald, and I am a resident on Alta Vista Drive, further up from the area that is proposed for the speed humps. I will agree with the previous public speaker that the speed on that stretch of road is concerning. The reason I logged on to Zoom this evening was just to share that I wanted to ask about the communication process for these types of improvements. I live further up the road and I didn't know anything about it until I saw the agenda. And I just think it would be great to have more engagement. I know the properties right adjacent to the humps were notified and involved in the process, but everyone who lives up the hill drives down that stretch of road. And I just think it would be great to get something in the mail about it. And so that was the purpose of my comments this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Fox, you pulled the item.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And thank you to all the residents that came forward about this. I have heard from city manager and from the office that this has been something that's been asked for a really long time. So I am not against the speed bumps in that area. It's more of a process kind of thing. Going through it, it's about a 1,200-foot stretch of road. And the current plan is to have about 4 speed bumps, so the density was a little higher than average. There's been I was speaking with some of our residents that live up the hill a little bit further down the street that were concerned that 4 speed bumps really quickly in one little area will be damaging to the vehicles and things like that. So I'd like to actually move to approve the item, but amend it to limit it to maybe 2 speed bumps in the area.
Okay. Councilmember Contreras, do you want to be heard on this item?
Thank you for coming forward. I know this entire process, it's a newer process. It's been very popular. And I'm sure you got to meet a lot of neighbors, and there's a lot of folks that want to see this improvement. Is Sam available? Thank you so much, Sam. My question, I just want to address maybe some of the concerns that Councilmember Fox has regarding the density of the speed humps. The number of speed humps in this stretch of road that is being proposed. Is this more than usual, or is it at the standard 400 or 500 feet every speed hump in the area that has been deemed necessary to reduce the speeds?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sam Hassanen, City Traffic Engineer. So this is a little more dense than normal. So the policy allows for about 350 feet to 700 feet, but we've been doing about 400 to 500 feet successfully controlling or managing the speeds. In this case, we wanted to cover the entire length of the stretch, starting at Casper with a speed hump right around there, and then the other end at Heather Drive. And that leaves kind of a long stretch in between. So we wanted to do 2 more in between. That puts a couple of the speed humps at about 350 feet apart, so a little less than we normally would do. And, just to kind of cover, the entire stretch with going down the hill and the history of the speeding. But we could do it obviously with less, could be 2, maybe 3, but whatever the council directs, obviously we'll make it work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm wondering if the folks that are in favor of the speed humps, if they would, want to see. This is because this is the petition that they put forward. So, if they were looking to get all 4, or if they were looking at potentially having 3, but it looks like, I've seen this in a lot of different areas. And I know that it's really difficult to control speeds. And unfortunately, some folks are going to have the experience where they're going to have to transverse this vertical, obstacle in the road. But, I feel like the design that we have is pretty elongated. And I would see, where you landed on 4. I'll go ahead and I'm not going to second the motion, but I do want to hear from the rest of my colleagues.
Okay. Councilmember Fox, I would second your motion based on your conversations with your constituents in your district. Councilmember O'Donnell?
I thought the deputy mayor was on there, but I see you ever moved yourself. Sam, I know that Sunset gets a lot of flack because there are 10 speed humps that have been added to it, and some of them are in very short order. With something like this stretch of road, would 3 be a feasible number without impacting, or actually while impacting speeds, but also increasing safety in the area?
Yes, 3 would actually have a positive effect as well.
Yeah. If you're open to a friendly amendment, if we're not going to do 4, and I'm assuming that you've talked to your residents. I actually see a lot of residents here, and so it's kind of tough because I've heard a lot of feedback from my own residents regarding Sunset and how dense the speed humps are there. Well, at the same time, I also have heard from a lot of residents throughout the city about trying to mitigate traffic and speeds through our neighborhoods. And so while I think that 4 might be aggressive, I think 2 is not aggressive enough, right? So if you'd be open to a friendly amendment of 3, I'd be able to support you, but I would not be able to do it at 2.
Yeah, I'd be open to that.
Yeah. Okay, those are all my questions for now.
Okay, I would renew my second to the modified motion. Councilmember Contreras?
I just wanted to thank you, Councilmember O'Donnell. I do agree that 2 would definitely, if you have 2, you might as well not have any, because we know that people are just going to be, putting their foot all the way down I personally would be okay with 4, but that's not what's in the motion right now. So anyways, that's kind of where I stand. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. Has everyone pressed the lock vote button? That motion is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to item C11, Eliza Valdovinos.
Good evening, members of the council and mayor. My name is Elisa Valdovinos, and I am a proud lifelong resident of Vista, California, and I am here in support of the speed bumps on East Indian Rock Road. Our street has become a danger zone for excessive speed in the past few years, and I believe that adding speed bumps would regulate the speed and also prevent accidents because they have been a proven solution to speed control. I would also like to add that by adding speed bumps, we would be sending a clear message that the city of Vista does care about safety and traffic safety to specify. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you so much for coming forward and having those words to say. Definitely we see that the speed humps have really alleviated extremely fast speeds. And, as someone who walks and rides my bike and drives in that area, you're spot on. So I hope that you continue to have share your thoughts with the city and continue to push and advocate for the things that you want to see change in your community. But I'm totally for this, and I'll go ahead and move approval.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
I'll second that.
Motion and second. Please cast your votes. That motion is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to item C13, speed bumps on Grapevine Road. Mr. Bissonnette.
Good evening, Mayor Franklin and council members. My name is Neil Bissonnette. I'm a 30-year U.S. Navy retiree, retiring in 2017. I live at 444 Grapevine, which is hill runs into Grapevine. We've owned our home as a new built home since 2003 and chose to stay and make Vista our home after my military retirement. The traffic and speeds along Grapevine have drastically been getting worse. The installation of stop signs over the last 2 years have helped, but only to a point. Prior to the installation of the stop sign, I was trying to have speed bumps installed strategically between Hill and Jonathan, but I support speed bumps along Grapevine from Olive to actually to Vista Way, but I understand why I can only go to Date. Unfortunately, the prior Vista fire chief opposed them, which led us to the stop signs. Since that opposition has disappeared, I fully support the city council approval of these speed humps. As mentioned, in 2003, we moved into our new build house, which is in the southbound curve of Grapevine. In the 2005-2006 timeframe, the city repaved Grapevine. Once the city's repavement project finished, that curve became turn 4 at Daytona. Technically the opposite, since the direction is clockwise, not counterclockwise like NASCAR tracks are. Since the installation of the stop sign, I've been in my side yard and witnessed multiple cars blow right through the stop sign in both directions. Not even the classic California stop. On one occasion, I was standing in my side yard. I witnessed one driver going northbound, slow, but did not make a stop or even a yield. I called out to the driver whose window was down, "Nice stop." The driver did stop, turned to me, and said, "There aren't any cars." I said, I told him it was a stop sign, not a yield sign. There have been other events just like this where drivers have blown through the stop sign and in excess speeds. In 2014, there was a fatality when a driver traveling southbound did not slow down and missed the curve and hit the corner across the street from me where there was a fence and a tree at the time. And it was a fatality, unfortunately. To say the average speed along Grapevine approaching the stop signs from both north and south is not below 35 miles an hour is not an understatement. Interesting enough, I have witnessed many cars coming southbound blow through that stop sign and take turn 4 at high speeds. 3 of my 4 children live within 3 miles of our house, and when they visit, they will park in the street, obviously, or in my driveway. I am surprised when they have entered and exited their vehicles, which also includes my 9- and 5-year-old grandsons.
Thank you, Mr. Bissonette. I'm sorry, that's your 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, sir, for those comments, and thank you, staff, for completing this process with us. I know that this stretch here on Grapevine has been really pivotal for speed humps. We have the elementary school, we have a nearby park, and it is a very active residential area that has been used as a cut-through for traffic, people coming from Oceanside, trying to get to the 78. I want to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Eldridge that are here tonight that supported this speed hump petition, and they carried it, and we were able to go out together over 2 days and get, I think, over 55 signatures. And it was great to talk to neighbors and to learn a little bit more about the experiences people were having on the street. And we know that the solution is the traffic calming devices that the city is prepared to provide. So I'm really excited to make a motion to approve item C13 and allow for these speed humps to be developed on Grapevine. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Contreras.
I'm just going to say I think it's super awesome that one of the co-benefits of having the speed hump petition is that we're seeing neighbors interact with other neighbors in such a positive way, and everybody starts to become part of that network of creating a better vista together. So thank you so much. It's not easy, going door to door and trying to get signatures, but I'm in full support, and I'll go ahead and second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. That motion is approved unanimously. That'll bring us to the first of 3 discussion items this evening. Thank you, everyone, for coming and making your voices heard. We appreciate your comments. That'll bring us to the first of 3 discussion items. The first is D1 regarding speed limit updates. If any member of the public wishes to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature, by pressing *9, or submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Our Traffic Engineering Division Manager, Sam Hassanen, will provide the staff report.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have with me Dara Woods, our Principal Mobility Planner, who will give the presentation.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Dara Woods, Principal Transportation Mobility Planner, and tonight I'll be presenting an item on the city's speed limit updates. To start, a little background information as to how speed limits are set. The California Vehicle Code, commonly known as the CVC, assigns various default, known as prima facie, speed limits for various types of roads, and speed limit increases or decreases from the prima facie are established based on engineering and traffic surveys, which consider the 85th percentile speed, which is the speed at or below which 85% of traffic is moving, collision records, and traffic conditions not readily apparent to the driver. Current procedure requires rounding the 85th percentile speed up or down to the nearest 5 mile per hour increment. It also allows for a reduction of up to 5 miles per hour from this rounded value using special conditions such as accident history, residential density, and pedestrian and bicycle safety. However, in October of 2021, new state legislation, Assembly Bill AB 43, was approved, which modifies provisions of the CVC, allowing for more flexibility in establishing speed limits at certain locations. More specifically, AB 43 allows for a further 5 mile per hour reduction in establishing speed limits on streets designated as safety corridors. However, it should be noted only 20% of the total length of a roadway network of a city can be included as a safety corridor. And streets adjacent to any land or facility that generates high concentrations of bicyclists or pedestrians. And agencies could start making these speed reductions starting in June 30th of 2024. Agencies can also implement speed limits of 20 or 15 miles per hour based on an engineering and traffic survey, and implement speed limits of 20 or 25 miles per hour in business activity districts. And as was previously mentioned, AB 43 allows for speed limits, speed reductions on streets designated as safety corridors. And to further clarify, that's defined as a roadway segment within an overall network where the highest number of serious injury and fatality crashes occur. Other factors include crash severity, the type of crash, such as a pedestrian bicycle-related crash, disadvantaged community status, vulnerable populations, and school proximity. Additionally, roadways with a high concentration of bicyclists and pedestrians may qualify for lowering of speed limits where one or more of the generators listed on the slide are present within a distance of approximately 1,300 feet. Which include the presence of sidewalk, bikeways, schools, parks, and so on. An overview of this information was presented to City Council in January of 2024, at which time staff was directed to work with a professional consultant to evaluate the city's speed limits in accordance with AB 43. A total of 99 roadway segments were evaluated, including evaluating downtown Vista as a business activity district. And as a result, of this evaluation, 95 of the 99 segments are recommended for speed limit reductions, which are summarized in the appendix to this agenda report. And for tonight's presentation, the following is a map which illustrates the roadways that were evaluated to have speed limit reductions throughout the city, as well as the new proposed speed limits. In conclusion, staff is recommending City Council approve the updated speed limits for various city streets, which are summarized in the agenda, appendix in the agenda to the appendix of the agenda report. That concludes our presentation, and staff and our consultant are available for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We had Christian Martinez, who wanted to register support for this item but did not wish to speak. I'll just start by saying I think it's great to examine these speed limits, but I will note that it would be my thought that at a minimum, maybe we should break this into 4 items, maybe by district. That way residents would have an opportunity to come and speak on these roadways that are in the parts of the city that they regularly transit and traffic. I think by having so many items so many streets all in one item, I think it's deprives the item of the focus that the residents would have to realize that this is something impacting their neighborhood. So my recommendation would be that we each publish these numbers to our constituents and seek more feedback and hope to have stronger public input on the outcome here. Councilmember Contreras.
Thank you. I know this was a really big task. We have a lot of roads here in Vista. I'm in favor of moving forward with the proposed recommendations from staff. I know folks in my district, they've been asking for this for a long time. And I have the opportunity to speak to a lot of people throughout the city. And this is something that folks, I think there's a lot of unity around wanting to make your neighborhood a little bit safer when it comes to, really fast cars, and folks wanting to be able to walk and bike. I'm really curious because Melrose, I would love to see a little bit, in some of these really long stretches of roads, I would love to see a little bit more continuity in the speeds. It's difficult, I think, for folks that are driving to have one speed in one area and then, move over to a different speed limit. And I do see that there's actually going to be a little bit more continuity with what we're doing. I noticed that, but I'm just wondering if, when I'm looking at Melrose, I know that we're still going to have some segments that are 35, right, which is great. 35 and less is, going to be a safer road. But some other sections of it are going to have 40 miles per hour. And for instance, where it's proposed to have 40 mile per hour, I believe there's a school around there. So I'm just not okay with having a 40 mile per hour segment of Melrose where there's a school. Can you speak to that?
So that would be this around, I believe, Rancho Buena Vista High School.
A little bit further up, actually. I'm looking at closer to, I want to say this is closer to
Is it Breeze Hill Elementary?
So like Trade Tech?
Oh, so that's North Melrose. Okay. So let's see, that would be the segment.
I'm trying to see if I'm reading this right, because there's no street
Yeah, that would be
names.
between like the northern city limit by Oceanside down to West Los Angeles. That segment actually is 45 currently. And in our analysis, we would be allowed another 5 mile an hour reduction. Correct. And that would put it at 40. So anything below that, obviously, could be approved for posting, but it would not be enforceable. That's the issue with going below that.
So walk me through the steps that we can take to reclassify this particular corridor, since there is a school right there.
So the school itself, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, it's just, it's difficult, because there's a lot of folks going to that school, and they even have this really cool bike locker, right? And more folks are utilizing e-bikes, and we're going to have protected bike lanes on that corridor. So do we have to just wait till we can do counts to show the increase in pedestrian activity? Or are we able to reclassify this segment of Melrose as, being next to a school, or, potentially a business district because it's industrial? So that way we can move the allowable reduction to a higher number, so that we can see maybe some more consistency with the 35 miles per hour, or potentially lower because of the school.
So in accordance with the current conditions, 40 would be the lowest enforceable speed limit. There's two ways that we could look at reducing that. Either we do a new radar survey, and that comes in lower. So that's probably unlikely just based on the speeds out there. But as far as all the other physical conditions, that's what was considered in our original posting, plus the analysis that we did under the study. So that puts us at 40. The other thing is that I can double check is that, state law allows for posting for 25 miles an hour regulatory speed limit when children are present. And I would have to double check if we have that posted. There's certain conditions that have to be met for that to be posted as well. That the school has to be physically accessing the street directly. So I will look into that. So that would be probably the easier way, is just to post at 25 miles an hour when children are present, if it's not already there. Mm-hmm. That is enforceable during the school hours, when the students are going to school and leaving the school.
Okay. I know it's difficult, and this is just a newer tool that we have to have a little bit more control, local control on speed limits. We know that the faster a car is going, if there is an impact, it turns into a fatality. You know, anything over 35 miles per hour is almost a guaranteed fatality. It's like, I think 90% or something like that. So, question for the city manager. City manager, how does what we're looking at right now feed into some of the other discussions that we're going to have or plans that we have? I know that we're looking at the safety action plan and we're looking at the circulation element on the general plan. So can you speak to how those relate to this potentially?
Yeah, so Sam, I think you can cover the safety action plan. I'll be happy to speak to the circulation element.
Yeah, so this item is more, I think, of an operational item. Is something that if the city council approves, we go out and make the changes, just, changing the speed limits. Obviously, after we come back and get ordinances approved. I think the safety action plan is more like a kind of a larger scale plan and effort where, we're coming up with top 10 projects plus some other projects that would be covering corridors and citywide kind of system-wide improvements. It would be kind of a longer term for implementation and more costly. So this is really more of kind of an immediate step that could be taken.
With respect to the circulation element, those designations dictate the width of the road and the development criteria that we apply when something new goes in. And we generally, designate arterial, collector, local roads. That's how we classify everything. I think the study, and correct me if I'm not accurate, that the speed limits and the evaluation is also based on those designations that are in the circulation element, or no?
It could be tied to it. That is tied to the prima facie 25 mile an hour speed limit per state law. So there's certain criteria that has to be met for that to be effective. One of them is a street being a local road. So generally the circulation element, the update probably wouldn't affect that because our local roads are going to remain local. So
I think where the council member's question was going was if we wanted to reduce the speed on North Melrose further, would a classification change in the circulation element enable you to do that?
That is not part of the state criteria, no.
Okay.
So in this study, we took into account anything that could be basically taken into account to come up with a reduced speed limit. And that really doesn't rely on any of the planning documents that we have, whether they're existing or updated.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. Thank you so much. I think this is a great step in the right direction. I would really love to see us really hone in on safe routes to school. But this is a great first step. And I'll go ahead. I haven't heard a second. So I'll go ahead and provide a different motion to accept staff's recommended speeds here.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
Thank you. Did we have a lot of resident feedback when performing this, or?
Not specifically through this process. This was just working with our consultant, just kind of going through the technical criteria. We have added some segments that I have heard from residents over the years about speeding and specifically reducing speed limits. So some of these segments are based on kind of past input, but through this process itself, that was not included.
And in a scenario like this, was your proposal to break it into 4 different districts to get approved? I mean, I don't even know if that would be necessary, but how soon is this something that we can get back if we were to postpone it? Because for me, I would genuinely like to get feedback from residents regarding this. I have a lot of constituents, especially along Sycamore, that would love to see this, but to your point, Councilmember Contreras, I mean, is there a way that we could find a way to even reduce the speeds even more? But I would like to get resident feedback and take this back to them and see if there's anything that we might have missed as well to try and do that. But I'm just curious how soon we can get it back if we were to go about doing that.
As soon as you'd like to have it back. So we have a meeting every 2 weeks. We can schedule it when you're ready.
I appreciate that. So my thought is if we bring it back, not next meeting, but the meeting after.
That would be
give us
February
ample time
11th. Yes, we could do that.
to reach out to residents, share this with them, get it back. And then if there are changes that are necessary, need to be made, we can make them. But if not, we can move forward and implement this at that time. Okay.
Councilmember, what if we brought 2 of the districts back in each of 2 successive meetings?
I'd be open to that, and whoever wants theirs brought back first is fine, gives me more time. But either way, if other council members aren't open to that, then we'll have to figure something out. But the sooner we can get it back, so long as we have what I believe would be enough time, which would be 4 weeks to reach out to our districts, that's what I'd be supportive of.
And if Councilmember Contreras wants to, well, I guess I don't have time to break it up tonight, but I mean, we could, as soon as you can break it up, maybe if you wanted to do yours sooner, we could bring it back sooner for your district. Councilmember?
Yeah, actually, I mean, I'm constantly talking to folks in my district, and this is the low-hanging fruit and safety. So if we could, I would just love to move approval for District 1 today. Time is of the essence. This could literally save lives today.
Is that something staff feels like they would have sufficient direction and ability to do?
Yeah, I believe we do. We might have to go on some of the streets just because of how they break down. Sorry.
There's a few streets that border the district, so as long as we include those in the assumption, then sure.
Streets that might go outside of the district just to go to the natural limit of where we took our, readings of the radar and so on.
You satisfied to leave it up to Mr. Hassanen to determine what's in, what's out? We can deal with the others.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Safety is paramount here, so this is something I could do to really make it safer in my district today. So I'm going to go forward and do that. I'm going to fight for it.
Okay. So you would offer a motion to approve the recommendations as pertains to the streets in District 1?
I will just request a friendly amendment to the motion on the floor.
That's fine.
And just while I still have it, I don't know if there's any other council members. Like I am not trying to stymie any of the safety issues that go with this. This is genuinely for me to get resident feedback moving forward. So I don't know if there's any other council members or if the deputy mayor would want to have your district included in that list.
If I could speak to that, I'm ready to approve this change and these updates tonight. I think that I agree with Councilmember Contreras that it's pertinent for us to act on these legislative opportunities that we have immediately because it is for safety purposes. But I actually appreciate your argument, Councilmember O'Donnell, that we might even be able to see an even greater reduction in speeds or a more appropriate reduction in speeds based on community feedback. There were a couple of streets on this list that we did not, staff did not recommend the greatest extent of reduction, right? And the community might come back to us and say, oh, you only reduced it 5 miles per hour. I would like you to reduce it 10 since that's what state allowed by the state. So if there's opportunities to consider that, I'm open to it, but you know, I'm open to any particular procedure, and I would definitely want to honor Councilmember Contreras' request to make these improvements, especially when you look at those heat maps of where the accidents are happening. They are absolutely happening in District 1. The level of pedestrian and cyclist use on District 1 streets is extremely high. So I would say that that would be a priority.
Mayor, if you're open to that, I'm willing to support it.
Let's, Councilmember Fox wanted to be heard.
I actually wanted to echo pretty closely to what Councilmember O'Donnell and Mayor Franklin said, is that I think it would be good to bring it to our communities, to our districts, and kind of get some feedback on it, because there's a lot of stuff I'm sure that went into this, and there's a lot of variables. And so, you know, taking a deeper dive into it and you know, doing some sort of small workshops or just going, you know, meeting with our constituents directly, I think would be very, very important to me. So I would agree with both of you on that.
Okay. We did have a member of the public that wanted to be heard, but Councilmember Contreras, did you want to speak now or after the, okay. Neil Bissonette, you have 3 minutes.
And since this is the first time I've heard which the speed, I mean, I don't know what streets you're talking about in our district, Deputy Mayor, but I would like to know what streets you're talking about, up or down. I was a submariner for 30 years. I understand safety, but slow is safe. And I think we need to understand this process before we make a decision on it. Because I don't know what roads you're talking about. I looked on the agenda, it just said D1. I don't know specifically what roads we're talking about. It'd be nice for us residents in our district to get feedback, because they may not be my roads that I drive on, but at least they might be somebody else's residents' roads. So unless you guys are able to tell us what roads now, or put a map up there that we could see, I would like you guys to at least submit to us what roads you're talking about, to up or down, I guess, is what you're talking about, right? You're not just raising speed limits, but I'm assuming you're talking about lowering speed limits too? So just lowering it all? Because I do travel around the Vista area a lot. I'm like, why is the street so slow here? Like, I feel like sometimes there's 25-mile-an-hour speed limits in areas where there's no residents. So, you know, I'm like, why is this 25? Why, you know, I know some of them are 40. I know about the tech school you're talking about. I've traveled that road quite a bit, going to our daughter's house up right across the line in Oceanside off of Melrose. And I don't see any danger in the current speed there. Now, it's in District 1, I guess, technically. But I don't see the danger in the current speed there. But I yield my time. Thank you.
So I'm going to offer my thoughts on this whole concept more broadly. I mean, I definitely think we don't have enough input from the people of Vista on a matter that is going to definitely generate a lot of attention once it's enacted. I have not heard enough information from our traffic engineering staff about which accidents that we think specifically speed could have prevented. I don't pretend to be a traffic engineer, but I know that when people run traffic lights, we get accidents. When people drink and drive, we get accidents. When people are distracted, we get accidents. When people speed, which, you know, my bedroom window backs up to Shadow Ridge Drive. It's not as far as from here to the doors of the council chamber to Shadow Ridge Drive to my windows that I sleep next to. So people are going, I don't know, it sounds like 80 miles an hour on Shadow Ridge, and there's always a motorcycle coming through with, it seems, no muffler at all, or some kind of a little import that is torturously loud. Frankly, I'd like to make an ordinance to have those vehicles seized and crushed that don't seem to have a muffler, but I've been told by the city attorney I can't do that. So I guess I don't have really any information that suggests that lowering these speed limits, I think it's going to be a real enforcement issue. I think it's going to frustrate a lot of commuters. And I remember we did a survey a number of years ago. It's now been probably 6 years. And it was the number one issue that voters across the city identified above all other issues. Now, I think the top issues of the day have changed. But at that time, the number one issue was getting home in an efficient manner. I hear always that we haven't done enough to time our lights. Mr. Hassan assures me that we've done everything within the bounds of human technology. But yeah, I think this is going to cause significant frustration for a lot of drivers. And I just would like to hear some more information about how lowering speed limits would affect, what do we know about, how many accidents did we have that resulted in injury last year or the year before that? Do we know?
Yeah, I don't have the number handy. I wonder if we have our consultant, Emily Turner from Fair and Pierce. You might have that information handy.
No, so we don't know that information.
It was considered, obviously, in this effort. We actually, our work from the citywide safety action plan that we're working on right now that developed what we call the high injury network around the city. So that went directly into this effort.
So this person here is our expert on this. Could I ask you a few questions?
Yes.
So
Absolutely.
how much consideration of injury accidents went into your work?
Yeah, so I'll just start off by saying I'm Emily Turner with the Fair and Peers. So this, as Sam mentioned, Safety Corridor Network was a piece of this analysis. Safety Corridor Network, which was provided by SANDAG through their regional Vision Zero efforts. And so that was the basis of this, one of the components of this analysis, the Safety Corridor Network, essentially identifying the roads with the highest proportions of our the City of Vista's most serious crashes. High injury network is another term you might hear that Sam mentioned. And so that was, essentially the Safety Corridor Network is one piece of how speeds can be reduced, just given, the role of speed in, as Councilmember Contreras mentioned, in the not only the occurrence of crashes, but also the severity of the crash and the severity of injuries incurred as a result of the crash.
I mean, what do we know about the cause of accidents? I mean, these things are studied. How many people were impaired by alcohol or drugs? Because I know that we do have those numbers. I mean, so I'd like to know how many injury collisions did we have? How many of them were caused by impaired drivers? How many of them were caused by distracted drivers? How many were caused by people who were operating their vehicle in an unsafe manner, exceeding the the posted speed? Because some of the worst accidents that I can remember were caused by people who were driving in excessive rates of speed, caused severe, and frankly, lowering the speed limit wouldn't apply to those people who choose not to abide by the speed limit. I also notice at rush hour, you're not going anywhere at 35 miles an hour in this city. You wish you were, but you're not. And that's something that I've received in the last 12 years. I've received a lot of complaints about that. The only time you're going to achieve usually the speeds that are posted on our arterials is during off hours outside of rush hour. And then what I find is it tends to be, no offense to the students who all left, but it tends to be people who are under the age of 25 who are lead-footed. And this is why I've supported our enforcement efforts to add more traffic deputies that specifically write tickets, because at the end of the day, I think unsafe driving and unsafe drivers really cause accidents, but I'm not convinced that lowering the speed limits won't reduce accidents, but I'm not convinced at all that it will. I don't have any information that's been laid before the council that it will. It's my general thought that in the past, where we've set speed limits that were appropriate to certain roads, most 35-mile-an-hour roads have a very low volume of traffic on them, and where the speed fits. And so I could see a strong correlation. There's the old drownings and ice cream sales are strongly correlated. You know that, right? Because you're a data scientist. But they taught you about causation versus correlation. That apparently ice cream doesn't actually cause drownings. They just both happen to increase during the summer months. So is lowering the speed limit necessarily going to reduce accidents? Because it's not going to reduce the volume of traffic on these roads. It may increase driver frustration. So I just don't have any information. I'm not being presented with any expertise about the safety question, and I think that's quite important. So at this time, with all of that said, I'm not going to be voting for the item. Councilmember Contreras.
Okay, so it actually doesn't take all that much time to research the correlation between speeds and fatalities. And if someone doesn't want to take the time to do that, we've actually had a ton of constituents come forward, a good amount from my district, that have cried here to the council because they saw Melrose widen, and things that used to be fender benders became fatalities. So we know that that was a direct correlation. Now, there's a lot of other places outside of Vista that have done complete streets where they lower the speed limits. And there's one city that actually achieved Vision Zero, which is 0 serious fatalities and injuries. And the way that they did that is they actually implemented speed reductions. And that's Hoboken, New Jersey. But, you know, I really implore my council here to do a lot more research on public safety and when it comes to speeds and vehicular violence, because this is such a great way for us to improve our community. And honestly, it doesn't take that much to start implementing safety on our roads. If we care about public safety, we have to care about the excessive speeds on our roads. And the number one reason why we see excessive speeds on our roads is because they are designed for excessive speed.
If I could just add here, I also just wanted to speak, you mentioned Hoboken, New Jersey. There's a growing body of research between not only the correlation between speed and, like you said, the risk of injury, but also just the implications of reducing speed limits alone and showing the positive effects of that. So that's research I'm happy to share at a later date. But Hoboken, New Jersey is a great example. City of Seattle has undergone similar efforts to reduce speed limits alone, just increasing the density of signs, but no changes to the design of the roadway even, or enforcement, and have still seen remarkable impacts. So yeah, certainly a growing body of research, and I'm happy to share that with city staff.
I would love to see that, because I think that needs to get shared with the rest of my council immediately. Okay, so City Attorney, I'm confused as to where we are in voting for what.
As I understand it, the amended motion is to approve the D1 and allow Sam flexibility if the roadways go over into a different district, and then to bring back on the second meeting of February the other districts. But and then I think it was outstanding for Deputy Mayor if she wanted to include her district tonight or not.
Let's go to Councilmember O'Donnell next, and then we'll come to the Deputy Mayor.
I'm not finished.
Oh, I apologize.
Sorry.
Actually, you had yielded the floor, and then we had a request to speak. So right now the floor is to Mr. O'Donnell, and then we'll come back to you afterwards, because you had yielded, and then we'd recognize. So Councilmember O'Donnell.
That's fine.
I can yield my time to let you finish.
Certainly. We'll come back to Councilmember Contreras then.
Oh, I know you just don't want to hear from me, but it's okay.
You have an unlimited amount of time to speak this evening. As
Fantastic. I had to fight for that one too. I'm fine if you all want to take additional time to consider it. Some people don't study this in the way that I do, but I really, really implore that we move forward with District 1.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
And I'm supporting you in this, and I do genuinely want to move forward. I don't want to stymie anybody whose district wants to move forward with it. I would just like more time to bring it back to my residents and have a larger discussion about it. I agree with you, because I've had a lot of discussions specifically along Sycamore, but I do see places like Lupine Hills missing on here and other arterials that people talk to me about all the time. So there are things that I would like to discuss with both engineers as well as residents, at least in my district, before I move an entire map forward. But I am supportive of, in the motion, moving District 1 forward and then having this come back no later than the second meeting or 2 meetings from now to make a final decision on this map.
Councilmember Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would support the staff's recommendation to approve the updated speed limits. This was publicly noticed to the community, and it is not an isolated conversation. It's a conversation that has been ongoing, and we are taking this action tonight because of a lot of the consistent feedback we've been receiving from residents for many, many years now. So I'm really grateful that we have the legal opportunity to take this step. So based on how the motion is outlined, I don't know if I could support it, because what I would like to do is I would like to move forward with staff's recommendation to approve the updated speed limits and provide opportunity for council members that would like to withhold their areas to be heard at a later date. Rather than, saying when I want my areas to be heard, I would like to approve what staff has publicly posted and brought us tonight. And then if there are reservations and people need more time, perhaps we make concessions for those and make allowances for those. But the motions have been a bit back and forth, and so anything I can do to support the movement of any of the items tonight, but I don't have a particular preference on the specific date of when these items are heard again for District 3, but I would, in general, support staff's recommendation.
Councilmember Contreras.
So, City Attorney, would it be within order for me to make a substitute motion that we move forward with staff's recommendation, withdrawing districts 2 and 4 from moving forward until whenever it was that we agendized?
Yes.
And that substitute motion would be voted on prior to?
The original amended motion, yes.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and make that a substitute motion, and maybe there's a second for that.
I would second.
Deputy Mayor, seconds. Okay, Councilmember O'Donnell.
Can I ask for clarification from our city attorney? Are those not almost identical minus we're just including one additional district?
I think we get the result is the same, as I understand it, but I mean, the way it's worded is a little bit different, how it's being presented. But yes, I do think at the end of the day, practically speaking, it gets to the same place as the two motions.
I believe I did second the mayor's motion, correct? Are you open to a friendly amendment to that motion to include that, or is that just unnecessary?
Well, procedurally now, there's a substitute with a second, so that substitute motion has to be voted on.
Okay, I have other questions before we
If
take
that
a vote.
motion failed, then we would vote on the other motion.
Well, I guess my question to the mayor would be if you'd be open to that amendment, because I don't want to fail a motion that I actually support to then go back in circles and have a new motion made.
So the substitute motion would approve districts 1 and 3, is that right?
Correct.
Okay, but you're not,
I'm not including 2 and 4 in that.
right, but, and you don't want to vote for that?
I would respect my colleagues in their districts and understanding that I believe that they have had the opportunity to speak.
Now I'm confused. What do you,
So
I don't know that we can at this point because their motion has now preceded the motion that was on the floor.
Well, that's why I'm asking if you would do a
They would
friendly.
have to withdraw their motion and then we would amend ours. And what would you want it to be amended to in your request for them?
It would literally be the exact same thing I was trying to get to earlier before we went in that giant circle,
is
and that
what?
is allow the deputy mayor's district, so districts 1 and 3 to move forward, and then 2 and 4 to be withheld until a later date.
I at this point, I am unable to determine the difference between the two motions.
That's the point I'm trying to make right now.
So what would the difference in your mind be if we just approve the substitute motion?
There would be none. I'm just making sure that we're all on the same page.
Then let's just vote on the substitute motion.
But before we get to that vote, all right, so I will be supportive of that. Sam, once we change the speed limits, is there a plan for the city to retime the traffic lights? And I ask that for this reason. You have been a tremendous help in making the intersection at Longhorn and Melrose a complete street, and I found that out today because I waited 4 minutes before I could make a left-hand turn onto Melrose, which I am grateful to keep our students safe, but it was very frustrating in the moment. But my question is, would we have to retime all the stoplights as well?
We may have to. Obviously, we'll have to look at some of the operational, impacts of reducing the speed limits, and hopefully the actual speeds coming down. It may or may not make much of a difference. I think, as the mayor pointed out, during congestion timing, because the speeds may be limited by kind of how much traffic can flow. But we will look at that obviously down the road.
Okay, and then my other question is, from passage tonight how soon is implementation on moving forward with the reduction of those speed limits?
So actually, that is something that we point out in the agenda report. We do need to come back to the city council with formal ordinances because that's required in
Right,
state law
okay.
anytime we change speed limits. So
And so my asking to delay this for my district isn't actually going to impact the time frame in which we can potentially get those reduced, so long as we're expedient up here in moving them forward.
actually, it may not, because we could probably start, drafting the ordinances and then plugging in the final speed limits based on, final decisions from the city council. I believe it might be in 2 of the districts. But I want to also point out that any additional streets that we add, so we took all the streets that already have radar surveys and a few more that we did radar surveys for. So any streets that are not on this list are local roadways that are prima facie 25. So if, as a result of community input, we add streets, so that might take more time than that, the next 4 weeks, because we do have to conduct radar surveys, kind of document all the existing conditions, and to establish a speed limit that is lower than 25, because the new state law does allow for these local streets that are 25 based on that now we just kind of post what we call prima facie default, no studies, it's just 25 residential. To reduce those, then we would have to do studies, so that might take some more time. And then maybe I wanted to ask for clarification on reaching out to the community, if that's something that we're going to be doing workshops, if it's individual districts, or if it's staff, or it's just the council members taking stuff
I'm
back
open to
to
doing
their-
a workshop, but I also, I can pretty readily get feedback, I think, from people regarding this. It's just a matter of getting it out to them, which, because of work travels, did not allow me the time or afford me the time to do so for this particular item. So, yeah, so I'll be supportive of your motion, and I appreciate all the work that went into this.
Deputy Mayor, we have a speaker that would like to be heard. Would you like to hear from the speaker or be recognized?
If I could just ask
Please,
a
go
quick
ahead.
question to Sam for information. Is the survey process, so this process, what was the cost to the city compared to what a survey process would look like?
For an individual street to do.
For the greater reduction opportunity?
Oh, for this whole effort?
Yes.
I'm trying to remember what the cost was. Emily, you might be able to help.
But is it a safe assumption that the survey process would cost more than this initial process we're venturing into now?
Hard to say, but on an individual level, yeah, if we compare them, because these streets, like I said, the vast majority of them already have existing radar surveys. They have an existing sheet that lists all their existing conditions. So yes, I would say yes. If we were to go to a street that is already default 25 that doesn't have the information to gather the information, the radar, yes, it would be more of an effort.
There might be areas where we need to do more research. Thank you.
Okay. Ann Pate would like to be recognized. Ms. Pate?
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry. You said that this was publicly noted. I missed that. Maybe that was before my time. I've only been living here in Vista for 5 months. But in all the discussions, you just brought up the cost of the consultant for this. And I was sitting in the audience kind of frustrated, wondering what's the cost of actually implementing this, because fabricating new signage and sending crews out to replace speed limit signs on 95 segments of road is not without cost. And as a taxpayer living in Vista, I'd like to know what are we on the hook for money-wise?
I think that's a great question. I'd love to know the answer to it. Do we have any estimates? Do we know what it costs to make one speed limit sign?
One speed limit sign that is on an existing pole, to replace that, about $50 to $100. But then
that's all.
Yeah, and we were going to obviously estimate all that after council direction tonight, go back, draft all the ordinances, which is already within our contract with Fear and Peers, and go out and do all the field work, all the assessment of how much work and cost that will bring that back to council. So we were actually looking at about, between this step, if this was all approved, about 3 months to draft all the ordinances, do all the field assessment, come back with the cost and all the ordinances.
Now, where possible, are you going to take the speed limits out of use in one location and re-implement them in another if they're
It
the
could be,
correct size?
yeah. Signs could be reused, yes, if they're in good condition.
Good, because I certainly don't want to pay for all new speed limit signs if we don't have to, but I know they're not all the same size. Some of them on the larger roadways are larger sized. Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, just curious as a follow-up question. Are these signs fabricated in our public works, or is this outsourced?
No, they outsource it. There's a sign shop that they contract with.
Thank you.
So last thought on this. I see this, there's a safety element of this. We really haven't gotten a lot of information on the safety element, particularly as relates to the specific injury collisions that have taken place in Vista. There's also sort of an anti-automobile agenda here. No, there is. And as much as you want to be disrespectful of your colleagues and snicker and laugh, the reality is that most of the people of Vista rely on their automobiles to get to work, to get to school, and they feel the constant assault, unnecessary high taxes on gasoline. You know, we have some 95 waivers to, you know, federal regulations that cause increased prices of gasoline here. It's $1.35 more expensive in California than the national average. So, you know, California drivers are under assault, and our current mass transit system serves about 2% of commuters. So while you snicker and laugh, the reality is that many of your voters and residents in your district, they rely on their cars, and they want to get home to their families safer and faster. And it's been a point that they've continuously made. You know, we talked about reducing speed limits in front of schools. Don't we have school zones in front of the schools already that reduce during school hours to 20 or 25 miles an hour? 20 miles an hour, right? 25? Yeah. I could go to 20 miles an hour in a school zone. I'd be happy with that. But that hasn't been proposed for us tonight. We have a whole new round of comments now to talk about the radical anti-vehicle agenda. Councilmember O'Donnell, you're first.
No, Mayor, I just want to be clear on my intent and purpose of this. I am not anti-vehicle. I have a hybrid that I drive everywhere. In fact, the slower I go, the more mileage I get out of it. So it is not anti-vehicle, and it is a safety thing. I'm not opposed to lowering speed limits. I just am opposed for my own district to doing it right now without going into the community with this information to get back from them. You know, there are people that are probably going to be irate if they see that Melrose gets dropped down to a 45 or a 35. But the reality is, and I think we've all experienced this, I've been driving down Melrose before, probably not paying attention, going a little bit over the speed limit, and I have people fly by me. And I'm talking like 85, 90 miles per hour, if not faster. Will a lower speed limit stop that? Probably not. But it doesn't mean we can't start with that. Regardless, my intent is, I just want to be clear to the public, is not to be anti-vehicle. It is very much a safety issue, but I also want to go back to the public and have a discussion within my community.
Councilmember Contreras.
I'm ready to move forward with the pro-safety agenda for my district.
We have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
Just for clarity, this is just for the two districts. Okay, thank you.
That motion passes with 4 in favor and 1 opposed. And that will bring us to item D2, discussion about the Standing Committee on Homelessness. If any members of the public wish to speak on this item, they may indicate so by using the raise their hand feature, by pressing *9, or by submitting a request to speak card. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Deputy Mayor Melendez requested this item to be added to the agenda, so we'll ask her to introduce it.
Thank you, Mayor. So as we've been developing a standing committee on homelessness, I've served, as well as the mayor has served, for a number of meetings now. And I have had very fruitful discussions with the mayor. I've received some wonderful information from our contractors providing services, as well as our city staff. And at the same time, there have been many moments while serving on the standing committee to address homelessness where I was seeking more feedback from members who could sit alongside us, right, as a council, and provide more perspective on the issues of homelessness and our strategic plan to address homelessness specifically. So I believe that the oversight of our council is extremely important. Of course, we have complete governing control as a body as to the contents and execution of our strategic plan to address homelessness. And I really do believe in that public participation to give us perspectives that we may not have ordinarily have had. And so my recommendation, based on my experience serving on the standing committee and my receiving feedback from the community, is to establish a community-centered committee to review information and advise the Vista City Council on matters related to the strategic plan to address homelessness. And there's a few ways we can go about that. We'll go to the next slide. So I've considered this topic for many months now, and I've spoken to our city staff. And there's a couple ways we can go about developing a more robust standing committee on homelessness, really to help us do the work of addressing homelessness. And the activities of a committee could include evaluating the services provided by the City of Vista, reviewing contracts with our service providers, reviewing requests for proposals, recommending grants and program opportunities. And the committee may be comprised of Vista residents with lived experience of homelessness or those who have utilized our homeless services, non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, or service providers that are not contracted to provide services and are not receiving grants from the city. I think that's really important to make sure that there is transparency and that we're able to have efficiency without there being any conflict of interest. I also believe that stakeholders, including Vista residents, business owners, or those impacted by homelessness, would be great to include on the committee on a regular basis. We have many discussions throughout the years. Our calendar is very full. As the city manager just reflected, we have a meeting every 2 weeks, but we don't always get the level of community participation that we want to have. So having a standing committee with residents, stakeholders, service providers, and also representatives from public safety, Vista Unified School District, and other organizations, that will help us bolster our strategic plan to address homelessness and really make sure that we are going in the right direction. There are some additional considerations I would pose to my council, that we could request staff to develop the objective standards and rules of the committee for council to approve. Do they have the ability to vote, right? What does it mean for them to advise the council? And we could truly limit or provide them with any type of power. It could be a committee, it could be a commission. In speaking with the city attorney, all of this is legally permitted. We could also request staff to provide recommendations for appointments based on some of the suggestions above, and to ensure that there's a process for council to approve these members on the standing committee to address homelessness. This is a very complicated subject. Homelessness is a very complex issue, and I believe that we can move forward together and be able to address the intricate nature of our programs, ensure that we are best using public dollars, all with a volunteer board of a committee or a commission to work alongside the city council, provide recommendations and feedback so that we come back to address any decision-making that we need to do on our strategic plan to address homelessness, that we've been armed with all the best information from our staff and really robust feedback from a community-centered committee. Another benefit to a community-centered committee is that we would be able to have staff get a little bit more support. Staff is doing so much work when it comes to homelessness services. And from my discussions, it sounds like staff would certainly benefit from a committee that is active and prepared to provide that feedback that myself as an individual, I'm not going to be able to see it from every perspective. I might not be able to contribute to the law enforcement perspective. I'm not able to contribute to the school district perspective or the service provider perspective or the lived experience perspective. And I think that that's what's really key for me is providing an opportunity for those with lived experience of homelessness to be part of the review process for our services for the purpose of equity and transparency. People's lives are being impacted by our services, and I want to make sure that we're doing our due diligence to provide the very best services and programs with public resources that we can. So those would be some of my thoughts and recommendations. I am not interested in continuing to serve on the committee as a two-person ad hoc, two-council member body. I think that we could get a lot more benefit from a committee if it had some of the robust contributors like I'm recommending. So leave it up to my council or any community feedback. We could go through a very robust process to develop this, and I would be available for any questions. Thanks.
So as the other member of the regular standing committee, I would just say, my original comments when you proposed the standing committee were not particularly supportive because I believed that this was basically allowing 3 members of the council to have an out, not to actively participate in the issue that is clearly identifiable as the #1 issue of our day and time that voters want to see us address. It repeatedly comes up as #1 topic of conversation and a #1 topic in all the survey research about what issues are most important to voters. So I didn't like excusing 3 members of the council from that discussion, which is why I asked and we ultimately amended and made the other 3 members ex officio on that committee so they had the right to come and participate. We've had, I don't know, maybe 8 meetings, maybe it was 6, maybe it was 4, I don't remember exactly. We had service providers present that are participant in the community. We had our sheriff's deputies, we had our outreach personnel. They all had an opportunity to come forward and give reports. The members of the community that were interested in this topic had an opportunity to come forward and speak and be heard. And I have to say, I think we actually did a lot of good work having a separate, dedicated time to dive into these issues and really pull them apart and conduct some oversight and accountability for our contracts. When I suggested that we build a homelessness strategic plan, we decided as a council to have 4 workshops. The overwhelming participants from the workshops were individuals who represented organizations who sought to benefit. They worked for organizations, NGOs, service providers who ultimately sought contracts with the city. I see this proposal as one that would be, the positions on such a committee or commission would be sought out by those individuals who are seeking contracts or who we already have contracts with. I think it's our job as a council to hold those service providers accountable. Our state auditor, our Democrat state auditor, released a report that said $24 billion has been spent on homelessness in California, and no one knows where it's gone. Here in the county of San Diego, we've spent billions of dollars. And there are not a lot of us, I'll give you a nickel if anybody here on the dais knows how many people, the staff you can't answer, how many people are on our roster of people that are providing services. Just shout it out if anybody knows the answer. It's 32. We have 32 people on our roster who are providing services, some not funded, but most of them funded directly by the city of Vista, others funded by the state and the county, but they're all working here in Vista on the problem. I think it's really important that, you wonder where's the money going, right? Because in point of fact, countywide, the homelessness problem got much worse, appreciably worse, according to the point-in-time count. Some cities had explosive growth in homelessness. And so you go, we're spending more money all the time. Why is the problem getting worse? I can't support further delegation of this, our number one issue that the residents are asking us to tackle. If you go talk to your residents, I am absolutely certain this is among the very, if not the top issue, one of the top two issues. So I think it's critical. We were elected, and only you are able to be held accountable, and myself as a member of the council, by the people of the city of Vista. We get a report card every 4 years as to whether or not we get to keep our jobs, and I think it's really critical to have the people's representatives directly overseeing these contracts. We have to be able to speak up when certain contracts are not achieving results. Recently, we ended the contract with Exodus. There are other services, I've voiced significant concerns about our not interfaith, but interfaith by way of the alliance, the Shelter Alliance. We had, an emergency meeting to consider whether or not we were receiving the services that we were paying for, and we decided to change the model of compensation. So we've made a lot of changes because we're not asleep at the switch. We are really actively paying attention to the information that's coming back. And, somebody from VUSD, they have an independently elected board. We have, and Mr. Lung, I'd like you to come forward and explain to us, because we have a regular working group that meets where we have an opportunity for representatives. That's sort of a staff meeting, but then we were also having this public meeting. So we kind of had two opportunities. Can you discuss the ongoing task force meeting? That's sort of an internal task force.
Yeah, I believe you're referring to the two different working groups in the plan, one being the internal homelessness working group, comprised primarily of city staff, and a separate service providers meeting, which collects all of our service providers in the plan to case conference and discuss progress with the plan.
So you're still having those meetings on an ongoing basis?
Yes.
How often do you have those meetings?
The internal homelessness working group is once a month. The service provider group is once every other month.
So those meetings are ongoing. I for one, wanted to continue the homelessness committee meetings. I wished that all the members of the council would come and participate, and I wished that large numbers of members of the community had participated, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 people in the room tonight, which is 10 more than we had come to speak at any of those meetings. Do you remember we had a member of the public who wasn't connected to one of the service providers come and provide public comment? Can you recall if we did?
As I recall, the very first meeting we had
Yeah,
one.
maybe we had one public commenter in.
Yeah.
How many times did we meet? About 6 times, or was it 4 times?
6 to 8.
Yeah, 6 to
Sounds
8
about right,
times.
yeah.
So in that model where we were having a regular public meeting, we were noticing it. And member of the public here, I'm shocked that you didn't get to page 7 of 100, and I don't know how many pages in this report. I'm kidding. I'm only 30 on this report, and how many in the whole agenda packet? We used to print them out. Now we're environmentally friendly with the iPad now, so I can't even see how thick the agenda item is, the whole report. But our notices are hundreds and hundreds of pages. So I want to say I'm not shocked that you didn't read hundreds of pages, and realize that literally every arterial and collector road, you get the idea. We have only 100,000 people in the city. It's difficult already to get participation. This council meeting, this is the people's opportunity to come and to be heard and to expect, if you want to know what's going on, you need to follow the agenda of this council meeting. But then also we talk about aiding staff. Each of the commissions that we've created, they do come up with some good ideas, but they also require a significant investment of staff time. Staff has to prepare an agenda. Staff has to staff the meetings and follow up with commissioners. And so it's a give and take as far as time, but it does require some expenditure of staff time. And I, for one, am not going to discontinue my regular discourse with staff and service providers. So I continue to keep up. I met with staff extensively this morning about this exact subject, and I continue to ask a lot of tough questions, demand a lot of data. So I just, we have a workshop meeting coming. What date is that meeting? Next Thursday.
Next Thursday, the 23rd.
Where we're going to focus expressly on this subject. And I just want to encourage the council to recommit itself to this, the singular most, recognizable issue of our time, instead of creating, we have, I think, more than, are we on our way to a dozen commissions now? We have a lot of commissions, and a lot of the commissions are coming to us now and they're saying, well, you've given us this question to debate of traffic safety or, whatever the different commissions are, but you're not always giving us the authority, because ultimately we are jealously protective, and we should be, of the authority we've been given by the people. So I think the question has to be asked, do we want to delegate our authority? If we don't want to delegate our authority, then we're asking people to come to a meeting to discuss a subject. They're already being invited to this meeting. You have 2 staff meetings. We're having 1 council-led meeting. So we're having like 3 regular meetings. 2 of them are monthly. 1 of them is every other month. And we're not generating enough public appearance at those. What will be different with regard to this commission? We're creating a lot of commissions. Like, every 6 months we're having a new commission. And I love the opportunity for people to have a volunteer role, but I'm not in love with ballooning the homelessness industrial complex by putting this. I don't want the service providers on a committee reviewing their own work. I mean, I'll just be very transparent about that. I don't think it's appropriate. I think it's the fox guarding the hen house. We have money on the line. We are paying millions and millions of dollars, and we have service providers that literally were not providing the services we were contracting for, and I became irate. I called an emergency meeting. We've seen other service providers just not be diligent or not focus on the data. This requires diligent oversight for the expenditure of millions. We've spent $16 million at least. We have another approximately $12 to $14 million, coming through the pipeline. This is one of the biggest discretionary, this is the biggest discretionary expenditure item of the city. Is there any discretionary item that's larger than this that you can think of? The CIP. So like whether or not we're gonna, rebuild City Hall and our parks is bigger, but those are long-term infrastructure investments. These are ongoing programs. This is the single largest thing that we're spending money on, that we're deciding how we're spending it, and we're overseeing the contract. So I'm encouraging the council, pull this issue back to the council, and I don't want to be in longer meetings that are necessary either, but I think that the committee meeting that we're having now is a balance between what I would like, which is I'd like all 5 of us to be diving in on this issue, because I think it's that important to our community, at least having the 2 of us show up to really dig in on this issue, having a regularly agendized monthly meeting where people, whether they're a service provider, a member of the community, VUSD, the police department, the sheriff's department, whoever it is, they all have a lawful right under the Brown Act to come and to participate in that meeting. So that's where I'm at on this. Councilmember Fox. Oh, I'm sorry, we do have, Denise Sims wants to be heard on this. If there's no objection, we'll hear from Ms. Sims before we proceed with council comments.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi there.
Council. I want to introduce myself to you. I became unhoused several years ago, and I'm not belonging to any church. I examine my goals for this type of community, and I want other type of help. Yet, I believe that I'm here tonight as a channel. A channel is a voice. A person moves out of the way to allow another communication. You see, I don't know, I believe that I became involved. I came to the meeting in December, and I'm not actively able to do the channeling I'm speaking about. But I wanted to speak to everything that you're speaking about and say that I've been unhoused for almost 3 years, and I haven't received any services. I have continued to work. I have continued to experience the stress of my situation getting depressingly worse and worse, and I do not know what more I can do about it. I know that of the services, the most interesting one seems like the elder help. At the time when I found out about that, I didn't know my computer went down, and I wasn't able to complete an application and talk about elder help. I'm so sorry. I know that for me, becoming unhoused was in part some of my choices, my poor choices, my selfishness, and a desire to have less money and to experience more of my life while I'm young. I'm a licensed massage therapist and a registered yoga teacher. I have spent quite a lot of time in the last 2 or 3 years thinking about homelessness, and I've never, ever been so scared as what I am right now, because I see it so much, and I think, but you're it. So I personally wanted to enjoy more time in my life and feel like I was enjoying my time while I was young, and I didn't really see like the idea about money. So I, right now I work and work and work and try to do like different things. One of the things that happened recently is that like I work for Instacart, and they told me you have to have insurance. So I've had insurance for the past few years. Recently, the insurance notified me that they were canceling my insurance because I haven't filed taxes in the last few years. And Nextdoor.com told me, what's the solution to that? File taxes. Sorry, my time is up.
Thank you, Ms. Sims. And Ms. Sims, I hope you'll connect with Mr. Lung here and see what ways the city might be able to be of service to you. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a couple questions about, I have watched a few of the meetings online previous to being elected, but I wasn't part of a lot of the conversations when it was put together. It seems like what you're asking for is just to kind of change up the makeup of the committee, put some more members on it, things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. And currently I serve as chair of the meetings, and we're able to discuss a number of topics. I don't see staff's participation changing all that much. And I am willing to continue to participate in the meetings if that is of benefit to the council. But my hope and intention would be that more people with diverse backgrounds and expertise and currently working in these different fields, or currently doing research, or those who have high aptitude for government oversight, right, and can keep us accountable, that they would come alongside us. So it really is to extend basically the chairs that are being filled in this this committee, which being the mayor and I, we have the ability to take certain action that we might not want to apply to a community-based commission or committee.
Okay, thank you. And by changing the makeup of the community and adding more members to it, I mean, maybe this is a city attorney question or something, but what would be the process for either adding more members to the committee, or would we have to pick a number right now and stick to it, or what would be the process for that? Maybe that's a good place to start.
You would have your two options. You could specify tonight if you had those details, or it could be brought back. I think as the deputy mayor has on here, she had asked the staff to come back with some specific rules and procedures. So, if we were asked to bring something back, we would recommend something.
Okay. And Deputy Mayor Melendez, you mentioned that might change some of the what you could do as a committee. Would that you believe that would have a positive effect and outcomes, and with recommendations that you could bring back to council?
So when I've researched what policies and procedures we currently have in place, and considering how it would be possible for us to create an advisory board or advisory body for our strategic plan to address homelessness, I did take a look at our current boards and commissions, and we have really specific rules, and they have, it's all within our municipal code, right, of what those bodies are allowed to do and what they are tasked with. I think that that's really pivotal language in our municipal code and I'm regretting not putting it in my presentation, but we as a council can decide what this committee, commission, board, body, review group, audit group, whatever we want to call it, is tasked with, and then what their rules are. So that is completely discretionary to us as a council. My recommendation tonight would be to see the appetite, right? If our council is interested in having more participatory governance, right, where we ultimately have the final say and vote of what the strategic plan looks like, but maybe a greater review board for that, then we could give staff the okay to develop that and bring it back to us for further approval. Could be a bit of a process.
Thank you. That's all my questions for now, but maybe I'll come back to it. Thank you.
Councilmember Contreras.
So these are my thoughts. For the ability to participate more on this, if we could move it from 8:30 to later in the evening, I think that would be good. I kind of have to work a day job, so I can't just be at every meeting that's at 8:30 in the morning when my work kind of starts at 9. So I would love to see that. I think I'm going to take a different approach than you, Mayor, on this one. I kind of see this as glass half full, in the sense that we do a lot of work here at the council level. Commissions and committees do not have the authority to supersede council's authority. But what they do have the ability to do is more thoroughly digest the information. So that way there could be more clarity at the council level. I've seen in some of the meetings of this current standing committee, I wasn't able to participate, but I could tune in virtually. And I saw a lot of great questions being asked. I saw that this standing committee was doing really good work of thoroughly analyzing and deep diving. And for folks that come and participate in these meetings or watch them virtually, you see that we just don't have a ton of time in this format to do those types of deep dives. So I wish that we did. However, there's been, great disdain expressed by members of this council for going, longer than 10 p.m. So, this probably isn't the best place for us to have those deep dives. But what surfaces from those conversations directly impacts in a positive way our ability to move our goals forward that are set in our strategic plan to address homelessness. And it does take more time. So, I think even if we continued it and we moved it from 8:30 to be more consistent with some of our other workshop times, I think we're all at 5:30 now for all our workshops. I think that would be great. The other thing that I'm really skeptical about is this idea that because folks aren't able to participate for whatever reason, they can't come to council, or they don't show up to the committee meetings, that we simply should not be doing the work. It's two totally different things. I wish that we could get more participation. That would be great. We've done a lot of different things on this council to get more participation. But whether or not people are sitting down where you're sitting right now, whether there's people there or not, we have work to do. And the participation of the public doesn't release us from our obligation to do all the work necessary, because the community does see a lot of folks suffering out that are housing insecure. We've had a lot of folks that have had lived experiences come forward and provide us, with just the story of what happened and how they were helped. So I do believe that we need to continue this standing committee, whether we make it a commission. I'm open to that. But I would love for folks, even if they're non-voting members of the standing committee, folks that have lived experience, that maybe have gone through some of the resources that we've provided. I don't hear enough feedback from folks that have utilized our services. Potentially, this is a way to collect that feedback. The other thing I think that's critically important, and I would hope that this addresses some of maybe the concern, Mayor, that you brought forward, which is certainly warranted, that there's an extreme amount of money going into trying to resolve homelessness, and we're seeing that the outcome is not necessarily what we would want. And there are a lot of factors for the increase in homelessness. We see the largest demographic is actually seniors that are experiencing homelessness, right? And why do you think that is? I mean, if we just look for 2 seconds, we understand that the cost of living is extraordinarily high, and that folks, even folks that have a retirement, how were you supposed to calculate 8% inflation, 5%? 4%. It's impossible. We don't have universal health care. We don't have universal child care. We don't have, a good enough public transit system so that you could save $12,000 a year, right? Because you have a professional driving you, and you can catch the Sprinter, and you can, safely get to where you need to go without a private vehicle, and the extraordinary costs that come with that. So we have a cost of living crisis, and we can certainly expect that we're going to see an increase in folks experiencing homelessness. So that to me is not shocking. What's shocking to me is that it would be the framing of some of this debate that we're having here would be that other members of the council are not putting work in because they're not going to an 8:30 a.m. meeting. So I do take offense to that. But going back to the extraordinary amount of money, I think the $16 million figure, what percentage of that was grants that we received, City Manager?
It's a majority of it, at least 75%.
Okay, so that wasn't coming from our general fund, and it wasn't a waste of taxpayer dollars in that sense.
Yeah, not from local revenues, correct?
Okay, so it's because we said we want to do more on homelessness, and we want to resolve homelessness and make it a one-time temporary experience, which is part of the mission of our strategic plan to address homelessness. So I also take offense with the idea that we're wasting a ton of money on homelessness when this is coming in the form of grants. But while we're talking about, that funding aspect of the services that we have, I would love the public to have the opportunity to provide oversight of our outcomes. Because whether it's grant money or not, we need to have oversight of the outcomes. And it's not enough just to have 5 people provide that commentary, that analysis, and that oversight. It's absolutely not enough. And I'm here to do more than what we've done before. So I want to see this continue, but I do want to see folks from the community who want to participate, because I know we have incredible talent in our community and folks that really have a deep heart. And I know that folks would step forward to participate. And I welcome them. I want that feedback, because we do need to have better oversight. But it is not going to come in the form of these council meetings alone. We need our community. And we need to come together, and I think that we can make a big difference if we work together strategically. But you need to have the opportunity. This council has to say, I'm hearing you. I know that this is a priority. I know that you're concerned. For whatever reason, you're concerned. I'm going to give you the opportunity to be a part of the solution, to be part of the oversight. So that's how I like to govern. That's how, my constituency expects me to govern in an inclusive way. And I want to hear from people that have lived experience. I want to hear from experts. I want to hear from folks that help feed other people in the community that are experiencing food insecurity, and they witness that person then experience housing insecurity. We have a lot of folks that help other people here in the city, and they're willing to do one more thing to help them even more. So that's where I stand.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
So I will start off with saying that I would agree that the meeting time is a little challenging. I also work a full-time job. I have a child. I have another one on the way. To get here at 8:30 in the morning would be extremely difficult. But I will also say this, because I have been to a meeting, and I do believe that the dialogue at times can be very good. But at the particular meeting I attended, I sat in this chair for 25 minutes without an ability to speak. And it wasn't, at the time, it was not questions that were necessarily directed to an organization or staff. It was individuals sharing their thoughts on what should be done and responding back and forth to that. And so I ended up not staying for the duration of that meeting for that very reason. That's not to say they were all like that, and I'm not going to critique or criticize and say that they were. I'm just giving one example of a meeting that I went to. So I was not overly participating in those committee meetings. As far as the staff time and cost, I actually am not against forming a commission or committee, but I do agree with the mayor. If we have 32 service providers, we need to ensure that we do not have people coming in or getting appointed that may be swaying it in one direction that is beneficial to whatever service provider it may be. You want to always give the benefit of the doubt to people, but there are areas in which you need to make sure, because we do spend a lot of money in this arena trying to fix and solve this issue, which is a huge challenge. I think it's a great point that you bring up that seniors are, even when I was elected 2 years ago, they are by far the most at-risk population that we deal with. And I can tell you, as a family of 2 incomes, We have challenges, you know, and if I tell people all the time, if you had told me, well, 20 years ago I'd be making what I make right now and still have faced challenges in trying to make sure we have insurance and can pay our mortgage and have food on the table and, all, and gas in the car. I mean, it is a real issue that affects people that are in far, far worse off places than I am in my life. So to have different perspectives and outside opinions, I'm okay with. I want to draw an issue even with an evening meeting because, like I said, I have another kid on the way. I don't think I can complain about both, though, so I'm not going to do that. To the mayor's point, though, also, like I do not want to delegate authority, but to have an ability for people to have an open dialogue and bring back something, you know, when I look at what our traffic commission's done, or our safety commission, or our parks and rec commission, and they can bring back tangible objectives for us to meet. Not that they're all things that we're going to consider or vote on, but at least it gives us an ability to have a ground point. And sometimes there are just ideas that are out there that are outside the box that we haven't heard of or haven't thought of. So I would be open to it for those reasons. I don't want it to be what ultimately crafts the policy, but I would like it to be something that can at least have input if we want to consider any of it. But I do not want to give up because we are accountable to our districts, we're accountable to our residents, we're accountable to the city. So to the mayor's point of saying that, you know, we're every 4 years, like, we should hold on to that authority as far as the decision-making process, because ultimately we are responsible for the #1 issue in our city, I would agree with. So with all that being said, I am supportive of having staff bring something back, but I want to be very, very clear in what I am outlining. If there is anybody who has an influence, whether it's grant funding, taxpayer funding, any influence over where that funding is either procured for or from the city, and I shouldn't say for because that would eliminate staff, but if there are any outside agencies that have any ability to receive funding from us, either it should eliminate them from the ability to do so, or we have to make sure that there is no connection to any organizations that they're with. And if that's the case, I would be open and supportive of that, but I also think that this is one of those commissions that we need to have the highest scrutiny of. You know, it's not something where we're getting advice on where to put a stop sign or where to put a traffic light or, you know, putting more lights in a park or whatever it might be. I mean, this doesn't just impact the lives of the individuals suffering from homelessness, but it impacts the lives of all the residents that live here as well. And so we need to be cognizant of that, how we shape that commission, the people that we put on that commission, and to ensure that we have the ideologies that differ enough to where we're being collective in the objective, but sharing different perspectives to try and find some common ground if it's going to try and create something that we can bring forward. All that being said, I don't know. I mean, we're just doing staff direction. There doesn't need to be a motion or anything, so.
If I could add what I think is some pertinent information, as you direct staff to go back. One thing to consider is if you have service providers being part of this committee or the commission, they would be legally conflicted out from ever providing a contract or a bid to the city. Government Code 1090 would forbid them from bidding on a contract. So if they're providing specifications, if they're overview of other service providers, they could not bid. They would be conflicted out.
So there's no reason even to codify that within a motion or even within a commission?
No, they would. I mean, it could present a problem. I think they will realize that and might not want to serve on a committee or commission. So there's a small community of providers in San Diego County. And so I just want to bring that up for your own edification as you consider this. And then the other thing I would bring up is the terms committee and commission have been bounced around, and it's completely up to the council. But if council members are going to serve on this group, it will be a committee, not a commission, because a commission is a subordinate body to the council. You would not be commissioners. You're an elected official council. So it would need to be a standing committee.
Would those individuals appointed then need to be able to have a vote if there's any, I mean?
It doesn't have to be a vote. It could be much more casual than that. If they are providing specifications on how, the project requirements, the contract requirements, advising the council on what they would like to see, that could be enough. You know what I mean? So Government Code 1090 is very broad now to prevent anyone that has, that's part of the contracting process to not self-deal.
Thank you. My only other question, and I'm asking because I genuinely don't know, have we had any policy issues come out of the ad hoc committee? I mean, I know that we have a new provider. Were the questions that were pertinent, I'm assuming, asked to try and get information that we were not able to get, which is probably why we alleviate ourselves from utilizing Exodus? Is that what has come out of this committee? Are there any other things that we as a council can point to and say, like, this was direction we were able to bring?
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I could speak to that just generally, that I think the primary benefit of myself and the mayor serving on the committee is that we already have a deep dive sense of our strategic plan to address homelessness. So we were really looking at further details. I'm thinking about a couple different discussions, review of our COPS team, right? Understanding and reviewing certain policies before they went to council to ask more deep dive questions, and honestly make sure that staff is more prepared for when they meet the whole council. I would say that that was the ideal workflow for us, is being able to ask deep dive questions before those staff or contractors came back to council.
And so then the purpose of this, expanding this committee, would be actually continue in that avenue and scope of work, but then also try and come up with different perspectives or ideas.
I think it's enhancing those questions.
Thank you. Those are all my questions for now. I think I've been kind of clear on where I'm at.
I'm going to speak for a minute, then I'll recognize you again, Deputy Mayor. One of the, just correct a misstatement of fact, was mentioned that seniors are the largest group amongst the homeless. According to the point-in-time count, they represent 30%, and that's of those aged 55 and older. They constitute 55% of the unsheltered population, according to the point-in-time count. Councilmember Contreras, you categorized my comments as saying that funds have been wasted. There were instances where we paid for services that we did not receive. I think you could adequately and fairly call that waste. But I'm not alleging or asserting that our homelessness strategic plan, which I called for the creation of and have spent significant time overseeing, I'm not saying that that is a waste. I didn't feel that was a fair categorization of my remarks, and I wanted to be on the record to say that. I think most of the things we've done have been very well intentioned, but I believe when you're spending many millions of dollars of taxpayer money, and whether it's grant money or not, it doesn't matter to me, it's taxpayer money, and we've been entrusted with these funds, and we are going to be held accountable by the public for how we safeguard and spend them. This idea of we're going to bring more input in, I mean, I don't understand. I mean, tonight this item was on the agenda. People knew we were going to discuss it. We did have one speaker on it, she's left now, who decided during the discussion to speak on it. Where are these individuals that want to be heard? They weren't coming to the regular monthly meeting that we were having, and I wish for their participation. We were compelling our service providers to attend. So I'm not trying to make any kind of pejorative remark about council members that chose not to or were not able to attend. But Deputy Mayor, perhaps if you don't want to continue to serve on the committee, maybe we should select another council member, and we can, I can work with that council member to decide what time of day would be best for that council member. But, I think the work was productive. You ask what policy outcomes. I don't think it was so much a policy development, because I think we really do that as a council, so much as it was really getting into, look, if you're going to spend millions of dollars and, you manage businesses and you want to know the people that work for you, if they know where the money is, right? There's a great parable in the Bible about, it's called the parable of the talents. And, I'm not going to recite the whole thing right now, but the bottom line is, the master leaves each of three servants with an equal number of talents, which were the coin of the realm at the time. And when he came back, he questioned each of them about what they had done with their talents, what they had done with the coinage that he left them, how they had invested it. And, and they each had a different answer, and it's a great parable. The point is, it's our job to know where our talents have been invested. We need to know. We need to have a command of how many people are working on different contracts. We need to know, numbers like how many, on average, right now it's 43 and a half days is the average duration of stay at the Boyden Creek Navigation Center. We need to know because it affects our shelter bed availability. We have to be able to drill into these numbers, and somebody that I think is elected needs to have command to the point where they know and can hold people accountable, because not everybody has a business mindset, and not everybody, and certainly we are the only ones that are elected to wield this power. And to me, the critical issue here is what hasn't been said is, but is obviously part of this proposal, is to eliminate the current standing committee. I mean, that hasn't been said, but that seems to be clear. And if it's not the case, then correct me if I'm wrong, but that seems to be part of what's being proposed here. I think we were doing good work on that. I understand not every member of the council wants to spend 3 hours once a month on this subject. To me, I think it merits 3 hours once a month. Did I always want to be away from my business 3 hours? No, but I recognize how important this was, and that I gave a commitment to the voters to do this important work. And so I volunteered, and maybe there's a member of the council that would want to volunteer to replace the deputy mayor, and we could have new membership, as sometimes happens. But I think we should continue the work at a council level, and then from time to time, as we're doing on Thursday night, we have a workshop meeting just on this, where the entire council can be included. But where we are, these are all new programs. They are all rapidly evolving, and we learn things because we're spending these huge contracts. The program designs can be hundreds of pages sometimes, and until the service providers begin the work, sometimes we don't find out what's actually being done with the money, which is why it's so important to have regular follow-up. I just don't want to look, I'm all about having the service providers have been attending the meetings. Those with lived experience have been attending the meetings. We've had people with, come to share their stories at many of the meetings. We've had the deputies, the cops team at many of these meetings. I mean, we're already doing all that's been suggested here. The only difference is it's being done by members of the council, and all of the people who are listed here all have the right, and many of them were coming to offer their thoughts at these meetings in a pretty casual format. So I just, so we're going to come up with some spin the bottle to figure out who is going to receive the delegated authorities. They're going to have protracted conversation. They're going to wax eloquent, and none of you are volunteering to come and sit through those meetings. So I know you'll be watching them in Zoom at home while you take care of the kids or spend time with your wife. I'm sure our wives and his partners want to see that with us. And I know that we'll all dive through the voluminous reports. I mean, I'm being a little bit flip, but the reality is we do have to come sit through and do the work. And it's okay if you don't want to sit on the committee. Let's pick another member of the committee. But I feel it requires that level of oversight and investment of time. And if we need to have the committee meetings in the evening, then let's move them to the evening so more can participate. This is a significant issue. And again, we're starting to create new commissions once every 6 months here. And the problem is, I'll reiterate, is that oftentimes, and we know because we meet once a year with every one of the commissions, and they all say the same thing. You're not giving us the substantive questions to decide. You're not putting our proposals into action. So then, it's sort of a disrespect to people that we put on these commissions if we're not going to listen to all their remarks, consider all their input, and if they make recommendations that we routinely disregard, I just feel it's a disservice. I think it's better to give folks like they have right now the opportunity to come be heard, shape our thinking, and then for us to make a decision. But this is like taking all the commenters and saying, let's let them have the meeting without us, because we don't want to spend the time to hear all of this and have, discourse over it. So that's where I'm at on it. Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. I brought this item forward firstly my first recommendation was to establish a community-centered committee to review information and advise the City Council on matters related to strategic plan to address homelessness. And I will certainly continue my leadership on the committee, but I do not want to do it alone. And as much as I have enjoyed our conversations, I think that we can do more. I believe in what you're saying about having business aptitude to have these discussions and provide feedback for some of our most sensitive areas that are impacted by homelessness. Let's get a business owner on there. Just because someone has the right and the opportunity to show up to a public building does not mean that it's happening. So what is the council going to do to actually foster the feedback that we need in order to have the best possible oversight for our programs? I would like to, in this discussion, I've realized with the assistance of the city attorney that my best recommendation for developing more community participation in this is to expand the committee to a number, right, which we can decide, of non-voting members, right? Maybe it's 2 or more additional non-voting members who are members of the public that are stakeholders in this process. They can have a yearly appointment. They can be delegated in any manner which we see fit. But it would allow us to have a little bit more robust conversations in our meetings. I think that we can accomplish the goal of removing any conflict of interest. I think that we can find the right people and ultimately extend that true opportunity to the public to participate. Showing up, giving a 3-minute statement at the beginning or in the middle of an item and then having to go back to your seat is different than sitting alongside us and offering your thoughtful remarks with the ability to ask staff questions. We can't engage with members of the public. And I think that that's a disadvantage when we want to have more participation. It really is, as part of our rules. If somebody wants to come and give comments, we have to limit our engagement with them. But if we had someone alongside us, we could engage with them and get to those points a little bit more efficiently. The last thing that I would say is we don't have to decide right now exactly what we want a committee to look like. But we do have the opportunity to direct staff to come back to us with some models that would be appropriate. I do have a few other things to say, but I really, Mayor, there's one thing that I recall that you brought forward in a standing committee that I think really gets to the spirit of what I'm hoping to accomplish here tonight. And that was when we were reviewing our homeless shelter. And you made a great recommendation that we should ensure that everyone who participates in our homeless shelter, our navigation center, that they have an opportunity to leave a review, an anonymous review, right? And that's the spirit of what I hope to accomplish. That anonymous review is not going to determine our policies, but it could give us some sincere insight into what we do as leaders who do want to hear from the community. So I want to express my leadership fully. I want to continue to do the work, and I want other people to come up alongside us to accomplish that. So I think that we can accomplish a lot of those concerns that you might have. I think that we can address those. I would be supportive of saying, if we can get unanimous support on this, and I don't think I'm going to make a motion or ask for a vote. I think staff has consensus that there's an appetite for this to come back to us. City Attorney, would you say that that's the case, or should I put a motion on the floor if it's unclear?
I'm not sure we have a consensus on the general framework that you're looking for.
I'll go ahead and make a motion that's just very friendly and simple. The motion would be to direct staff to come back to us with recommendations on what it would look like to extend seats on the Standing Committee to Address Homelessness to members of the public for a non-voting capacity.
That would be my motion.
I would so rather that you formed a commission rather than mixing council members with whoever it's going to be, because now we're back to this question that's been brought up quite a bit here, which is our time is very valuable. And, we went out and knocked on thousands of doors. We communicated, I was elected by a majority of the voters in the city. And so, honestly, again, we all should be jealous of the power that we were elected to. It wasn't easy to win the right to govern. And
Could I offer,
let
Mayor?
me just finish my thought.
Sure.
So if you want to have an advisory commission, have an advisory commission. If we want to keep the committee of members of the council, keep that. If you want to eliminate that, eliminate that. But I really dislike this idea of mixing the council members. I'm not going to, we have been rigorously reviewed by the voters, and the voters have decided that we should exercise this authority to make decisions for the city. And so, I'm happy to have advisory commissions, but there's a whole lot of delegating here to people that are not elected, that are not chosen by the voters. So I can't support any of this. You had more, Councilmember Contreras has the floor, but you could, if she's okay with it, you can be recognized.
May I offer? So I would just offer an even broader motion that we simply ask city staff to return to us with recommendations for community advisement regarding our standing committee on the homelessness. That allows them to look at commissions. It allows them to look at the committee itself and how that could be changed or updated. So I think we could ask staff, direct staff to come back to us with options for how we could include community participation in a formal manner for our standing committee, or for our strategic plan to address homelessness.
I could vote for that. Councilmember Contreras.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and second that motion. And maybe the answer has changed, but Mr. Lung, what is the fastest growing demographic experiencing homelessness?
Fastest growing is seniors.
Seniors. So I guess I was right.
Well, it was said that they were a majority, and then it was said by Councilmember O'Donnell that they were the fastest growing. While they are the fastest growing, they don't represent a majority. Councilmember O'Donnell.
I said highest at risk. Those were my words. But anyway, regardless.
Watch the tape. You also said that. You said both.
Okay. Well, then, point taken. I will, I can be supportive of a broad scope of ideas that can come back. I would also, just for clarification, because I do understand the importance of this subject, especially amongst this body and the roles that we were elected into. If there's a possibility to change the time in the morning, it is something I could probably be more available to be at and be readily available to have greater scrutiny over some of the things that are coming before us, at least in that capacity. So I'd be open to it. Another discussion we have to have tonight, something we can probably bring forward another time or just discuss and figure out. But I just wanted that for clarification, because it is very challenging to be at 8:30 in the morning meetings and 8:30 in the evening. And we've all talked about it up here in a public forum of how much we spread ourselves. And I'm sure that you are drinking out of a fire hose right now, understanding what we're talking about. But I am open to it. I just want to make sure that you're all aware of that so we can have a larger discussion about it. And that was it. It sounds like that staff and everybody is ready.
Can I ask one question?
City Attorney.
While the staff is developing this, then my understanding so far is this current standing committee will still exist and still meet. Is that correct?
I'll be there.
Okay.
Well, we have a meeting scheduled for Thursday. It's on my calendar, but no, when is it? Is it the 23rd? No, I still have a standing committee on my calendar. What day is it? Yeah, here it is right here. Standing committee, 8:30 a.m. on the 16th. Yeah, that's this Thursday. Are we having that or not?
Well, we were not planning on having it because we're having.
Okay, staff's not prepared to have a meeting because there was a instruction to cease having the meetings from the chairs, so we're not going to have a meeting. I just need to know if I need to be here at 8:30 in the morning on the 6th. It sounds like no is the answer. Okay, very good. When will the next meeting of the Standing Homeless Committee take place? Will that be on the morning of the 13th?
That would typically be on the morning of the 13th of February.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
So I would make a recommendation that we postpone meetings of the standing committee until staff is able to come back to us with a review of how we can engage the community on this topic.
See, I think it's important that we continue to have the meetings so that we don't put the work aside for a month or 2 months. I mean, I think it's important that we haven't had a meeting for a couple of months since after the election. So, you know, and we missed the meeting in November and December. Now we're going to cancel the one in January. And we're going to cancel the one in February. I mean, now 4 months have gone by. And I thought the meetings were valuable. I continue to have my meetings with the staff as I did this morning, but I actually thought the format was actually really good because it did bring all of our engaged service providers, to the council chambers, and it was this idea that, the reality is you mentioned the rules don't allow us to engage with people. Those rules don't govern us in committee setting. And we never denied anybody the opportunity to speak at length. You were the chair. It was your privilege to determine, but we only had the one person who came to speak. We never limited any other providers. We never put them on the clock. Mr. Lung, did we ever put anybody on the clock? No, we never put anybody on the clock. A committee meeting is inherently more informal. It was a regular monthly opportunity to get in front of the decision makers, which, think about this for a second. People who are current service providers, people who shape policy on this issue, people who have lived experience, they want the opportunity to come before us and have a dialogue about this subject.
I have a recommendation, Mayor.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I think that this would be helpful too in creating a framework for community members that participate. So what if you and I keep an upcoming meeting, soonest available, city manager, and we can talk further about the types of topics, right? We can do some work for our council and support staff. We can discuss the tasks that we may want community members to participate in.
That'd be great.
And we could also maybe discuss calendaring, right?
Sure.
We can do some of the boring stuff, right?
Let's have a meeting in February, and if you'd be open to discussing this concept at that meeting, and then maybe you and I can craft something together we can bring back to the council that we all agree on.
Sure, and it
All right, let's
sounds
do that.
like this initial vote will be for Walter, city attorney. The vote that we have before us, could you clarify that for us?
Actually, I think we were not taking a vote. We had a consensus that.
I did make a motion, though.
The motion, I think, if I could attempt to restate it, was that was requested that staff would make suggestions to the council about ways in which to further involve the community. And I would say that that's up to and including them sitting on the committee or creating a commission or simply having them further participate. It sounded like all options were on the table, and the council is asking staff to give us a menu of choices. Is that fair?
Yeah, but I really want to clarify that it's not just including the community. We could do workshops for that. We could do some more social media. It's where community members can sit and speak in an equal capacity and advise in some capacity.
I mean, I would be okay with having a regular stakeholder meeting, maybe once a quarter, where we go sit in the Vista room as equals. But,
I love that idea too. So I say, let's meet in February, but we want to give staff some direction that we will be looking to develop a community-centered group to advise on the strategic plan to address homelessness.
I don't know that we necessarily need a vote on this. I will vote yes, because it's very but do
That's
you,
my
if you want to have a vote, we can have a vote.
Mhm.
I think we still, do we have a second? I think we had a second.
You did initially.
I think you did.
did second.
Yeah, sounds good to me. We'll put you down on the record as having second, unless you object. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes.
So just for your information, the regular meeting of the standing committee is the third Thursday, so it'll be on February 20th, and we'll put it on your calendar.
February 20th?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. I look forward to working with you on that. Good, it's already on my calendar. Good. Okay, that brings us to our last discussion item regarding Sunset Drive sidewalks. If any member of the public wishes to speak on this item, they may do so by submitting a request to speak card at the dais by using the raise their hand feature or pressing *9 on Zoom. Speakers will be called upon after the presentation. Councilmember O'Donnell requested the item to be on the agenda, so we'll ask him to introduce it. Councilmember O'Donnell.
Do we have any speakers?
We do have Christian Martinez says he's in favor, but did not want to speak. We have Kevin, it's either A-U-E-N or A-V-E-N from Sunset Drive, and then we also have Bart Dixon. Would you like to hear speakers before you present?
Sure.
Okay. Mr. Kevin A. Kevin Auer or Kevin Avon? And then followed by Bart Dixon, if you'd please come forward and be prepared to present.
And members of the council and staff members. I'm Kevin Allen. I've lived on Sunset Drive for over 40 years. I've lived in Vista since I was 4.5 years old. I was born and raised, for the most part, here in Vista. When I ran for mayor once upon a time, one of the agenda items that I had was the Unified School District had cut their busing schedules down, and so they eliminated bus traffic for my kids that were going to both junior high as well as the elementary school down the street that's now a adult school. At that point in time, we'd argued before the city council, and that was part of my agenda as running for mayor, is that we would have a safe environment for us to walk in the streets. That was before the continuation of Melrose Drive. That was still a dead end at the end of Sunset Drive. And the agreement from everyone on staff and the existing mayor at that time was, yes, we needed sidewalks on Sunset Drive to make it safe. We also had, at that point in time, curves on the Sunset Drive before the developments went in, where parts of the road were only 15 miles an hour, where city buses, as well as transit district buses, couldn't make the curves without going into the other side of traffic. That was all part of the agenda of making Sunset Drive safe. I appreciate the speed bumps that are now in place. They have helped somewhat to lessen the traffic speeds, but what it's done is now it created an obstacle course for a lot of these speedsters. They now, because the shoulders are wide enough, they go over and they only use part of the speed bump, and they go into people's yards to drive across and continue down Sunset Drive. By putting a curb or a median or an edge at the limit line, creating a safe place to walk and keeping the traffic in their lanes would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Bart Dixon.
Some years on Sunset, to say Sunset would be a safer street to walk on. Good news for us, if we head inland, we go to the 78, we have a sidewalk all the way there, but if we go to visit friends, head in the other direction, as he said, you're walking on the sidewalk and the kid that wants to go 45 still goes around the speed bump and you're just like, we're here. So if we could look into that, that would be an excellent idea. We've heard in the past it was to be done and then it disappeared again, and I just happened to be talking to a city member And when he found out I was on Sunset, he goes, "You need to come Tuesday night. We're talking about your street." So called all our neighbors. We're here, and we'd love to see it go forward. I have since looked at the street, just trying to figure out where you guys would put it, because we have all kinds of power lines, and we have mailboxes, and we have people who have just put all kinds of landscape in. So I'd be kind of interested to see what your thoughts are and what the engineering department's going to have to do to create such an item. So, and I'm guessing that they would put a curb, as they have done on the other side, to mitigate the people going around the buttons. And yeah, another question would be is, are they going to do any street lighting if they did the upgrades? Would that be another option? Because that's a pretty dark street at night. So that's it. And whoever's doing all the repaving in the city, they're doing a great job, you know? So thank you for the speed bumps.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll close the opportunity for public comment at this time. We'll go to Councilmember Contreras.
All right. Do we have a map associated with this?
Oh, yes, I apologize. Yes, if that's right with you.
Yeah,
Yes,
no,
please.
sorry. One, to the public, thank you for coming out tonight. I also agree that repaving of the streets has been going very well. I'm trying to get Oceanside to pave that piece of Melrose that has remained undone, but we're working on it. The reason I brought this back before us is because a little while back we had not only approved but had funded this project, and then later we had taken that away to wait until a prioritization list had come out. Now, I could tell the stories like they've been told tonight from a lot of people that I've talked to. I take Sunset every single day. I can tell you just on the way here, there were 5 people walking on Sunset. One was an older woman, one was a younger individual. You had somebody walking their dog, and you had a couple that was walking as well. That is not unique to my experience when I'm going down Sunset, but to the point that the gentleman made, we did put in 10 speed humps. And I know just from watching people in front of me that it does not necessarily slow people down. I've seen people do the obstacle thing, but more often than not, I see people fly over them rather than slow down and try and adhere to them. Sunset has become, I don't think anybody ever anticipated Vista being 100,000 people large with the anticipation of growing. It has become a main thoroughfare cut through for a highly utilized west to east and east to west arterial road that both gets to Melrose and to the 78. The pedestrian feedback I have received is very similar to everything that was said tonight, and then some. When I stopped, I think they thought I was nuts, but thankfully there were no cars behind me, but there was an older woman and her daughter walking their dog. I literally stopped in the middle of the street and said, "Hey, can I talk to you real quick?" And when I told them that we were trying to get Sunset completed with sidewalks, they were over the moon about the idea because they had lived there for so long and they traversing felt so unsafe while doing so. There's connectivity that we talk about, and the completion of sidewalks is essential to improving just both pedestrian safety, but also connecting residents, especially as the gentleman had mentioned. You go one way to your friend's house and you can't walk in anything but dirt, gravel, and there are parts of Sunset that bow out, and it's a tree that you need to walk literally onto the street to go around if you want to try and traverse that space. You go the other direction. I mean, there's parts of Sunset. It's funny when you walk it or drive it. There are spots that have a 3-foot wide sidewalk, and then it goes to gravel, then it goes to dirt. Then you have a DG sidewalk that is made of asphalt, and then you just have gravel with a little berm, and you have about a 1.5 foot wide space to walk down. I can't imagine trying to walk that during the day or when it's heavily populated or during rush hour. But I do see it happen all the time because anytime I come to one of these meetings, there's no less than 7 cars at the stop sign outside the adult school when I'm heading this way. Well lit is something that I agree with. We have not brought that back on the council as of yet. I think my priority was for the sidewalks, but that is something I will explore once these are complete and brought in. It is a public safety issue, not just for the safety of pedestrians walking, but it is a known fact that when you have sidewalks with street lighting, it does prevent crime or reduce crime in that area. When you talk about accessibility, you know, we have an age-friendly plan that we're discussing on this council. We have an aging population in District 4. Many of the residents that live in that area are original people that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years. To give them greater accessibility, that was no offense or jab at the people sitting in the audience. I see you back there. But to give people greater access and connectivity to their neighbors and their friends that they've been around for that long, especially when you say you've lived here for 40 years or grew up here, those are the people we want to try and connect. There's also a lot of students that take that route every single day to school, to RBV, or to Lake, or when they go to Breeze Hill. You know, it's not just a singular school that's utilizing it or a singular group of individuals. It's also for the future. As we grow, we're going to need greater infrastructure to adhere to the policy or to the population and create safe spaces for those individuals to be able to traverse the community that they want to come into. I love living in Vista. We bought our second home after selling our first home here. My wife and I want to retire here and raise our children here. I know that everybody that I've talked to, they've either done that or plan to do so, because you have a lot of younger families moving in as well. And so when you see people walking their dogs or you see families out there, you want to make sure that they're safe also. But I think more to the point that I made earlier, you know, when I brought this forward, I talked about the safety issues. And I don't know if Sam is still back there. Oh, that's...
Our Director of Engineering's here, Greg Mayer, if you want to...
Greg, if I could chat with you just real quick. Greg, you should have stepped up. You knew what I was looking for. This will be quick. It's not putting you on the spot. Don't worry. So thank you. When we created the metric for speed bumps prior to having the ability for residents to put it in, we decided to put 10 along Sunset. How did we come to that number, and why did we do that?
I believe it was just a spacing, as Sam spoke about earlier this evening, it was just a spacing criteria, 300 to 400 feet.
What necessitated it?
Speeding, effectively, slowing down cars. So.
It was a safety issue.
Yes.
And so we have residents here tonight talking about a safety issue. It was a safety issue when cars were going. What would create a safety issue? We worried about accidents, we worried about pedestrians. What was the largest issue that?
I believe it's a combination of the two, but it you know, basically it was car accidents, people pulling out of driveways. You know, there is no formal sidewalk there, so pedestrians probably aren't prolific in that area, but that's about it, yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure, because when we talk about it, I think that the speed of cars relative to anybody living there and the people that traverse it are very important, especially when it's a heavily trafficked area, which was one of the arguments that I had made prior to this coming forward. But that was my only question. I appreciate it. So I'm gonna just I'll close with this. I mean, beyond the approval, beyond the funding, beyond all the reasons we've mentioned, beyond the public comment, I'm not negating the fact that this council should address and create a prioritization list at some point. But the reality is that this was approved unanimously, this was funded, but also we made a promise to the residents when doing so that we were going to implement and complete this project. By waiting until a prioritization list comes out, one of two things can happen. One, it may delay this project inevitably or for all time, because we don't know what that prioritization list will look like. But second, it is going back on the promise that we made to our residents, our taxpayers, when they asked the first time for this to be done and we approved it. We then came back and said, hey, let's pump the brakes. Maybe you're not going to get the sidewalks that you've asked for. And so that's why I'm here tonight to bring this forward. It is not to negate the work that any council members are doing. It is not to try and say that there is no other areas of the city that need or require a sidewalk, but it is upholding the promise that we've made to the residents when we approved this project. So the motion that I would make tonight is that we affirm the original decision that was made regarding the approval, funding, and implementation, and that we move forward the Sunset Sidewalk project to the original timeline that we had projected in the beginning when they were approved. Further, and this is something I'm open to discussion or removing, but that not only Sunset, but any other sidewalk project approved prior to the creation of a prioritization list be considered an independent project of that list and move forward in a time frame that is independent of the prioritization list. That's my motion, and those are my comments.
I will second your most detailed motion. Councilmember Contreras.
Question to the city manager. Are there other sidewalks that were, I think this is the only one because you all said no to Plymouth, right?
I'm not aware of any others.
Right. Okay, I just want to share a little context about this because I'm not against sidewalks on Sunset. However, this funding actually came out of District 1 on the assumption that we were going to receive grant funding for some traffic calming. So I have a problem with that. Everything, council member, that you described about the inconsistency on the sidewalks where it turns to gravel and then is completely eliminated, that happens in my district, and you have 3 to 4 people every 10 minutes accessing those roads. Your comment about needing to have a prioritization list and the fact that this might not be on there is because in this area, although it's important to you, I totally get that. It's a life and death situation for the folks that live there. But the density is not there compared to the density in District 1, and the amount of people that travel by foot in my district is significantly higher. And to say that, we need to build the infrastructure because we're going to continue to grow as a city is true. However, it is false in this area. There is no upzoning, so it will not get more dense. So I just have to point out that those are logical fallacies. The other thing that I want to say is, I wish we had more of it, because there's East Drive, where Salsa Market is, does not have a consistent sidewalk on one side or another. Both sides are inconsistent, and I'm continuously seeing folks having to dodge cars. And again, this is an area, people accessing the area of the Salsa Market, you're seeing at any given time throughout the day, 3 to 4 people every 10 minutes accessing that area. So that's where I have a huge issue, because those folks are not being prioritized, and they should have been prioritized a long time ago. So I really hope that when it comes time to prioritize safety in my district, just like I saw most members of this council do when I wanted to, reduce the speed limit to ensure more safety in my district, that you supported me. I would hope that when items come forward to prioritize public safety and infrastructure in my district, an area that is just over 2 square miles and has 25,000 people, versus the area that you represent that is over 6 square miles and has the same amount of people, that there would be a lot of consideration given to the residents in District 1 for completing the mobility that they deserve, because they are accessing these sites daily and they have no safe way to get there and no lights. And it's adjacent to a business area where there's a lot of small businesses. So I am supportive. The only question that I have about the motion that's on the floor is, one, we actually do not have all the right-of-way that we need to have a standard sidewalk. Unless that has changed since the last time that I reviewed this with city manager, I believe that statement is still true. Is that correct? Okay, so it is correct that we do not have enough right-of-way for a standard sidewalk. I am curious to see something that might be congruent with the more rural nature of this area. It's absolutely striking. I love where you all live. It's so beautiful. Because we don't have all the right-of-way and because it is more rural, it reminds me of something that's actually in District 2, Councilmember Fox's district, the sidewalk improvement that was done from what used to be Rancho Minerva Middle School up along that corridor, right, to up Foothill, which is DG, decomposed granite. Now, I have reviewed this with city manager. It is 30% less to put in DG. We're looking at over a mile of sidewalk here. A mile of sidewalk, that goes from one side of my district to the other, pretty much. But in any case, there is the downside, which is we could incur, it requires maybe a little bit more maintenance. So those are the two things. I just want to be really transparent with the council about what the pros are, what the cons are. I think the pros are it's congruent with the rural aesthetic. It provides still that sidewalk feel. And I think it fits the parameters of consideration for a safe walking sidewalk-like thing here on this corridor, where we don't necessarily have the complete right-of-way for a standard sidewalk. I just want to leave that out there, if that's something that you would consider, or, even if you don't, it's fine. I will still vote for the motion that's on the floor. But I'm just saying, I've been giving this a lot of thought ever since we first talked about it. And I was really, really, really upset that the council majority wanted to move this out of my district. But I understand I represent the entire city, and I've done a lot of things for the entire city. So, I do balance that. It's just really difficult when I see people walking as their primary mode of transportation every single day, and they can't get to several schools in the area on a dedicated sidewalk. So that's where, my resistance comes from, but it kind of just ends there. And I really, really want to do good by the people in all parts of Vista, because everybody deserves consideration for their safety needs. Just really want that to be taken into account when we're looking at budgets and moving money from one district to another.
Council Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Pardon me. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council Member, for bringing this to our attention. I think that the paths that can be created here hopefully can be suitable for the terrain. My understanding is that if this goes through, that we would have some maps come back to us with more specific details and engineering. Is that correct? So we have an opportunity to review it further. And it's absolutely true that there are areas throughout the city that would benefit from increased pedestrian infrastructure, that would benefit from increased walking paths, nature paths, right? Urban trails. There are so many areas of our city in all of our districts that need attention in terms of that walking, biking, on the ground infrastructure. And I believe we have had, as a council, experienced an oversight. And I promoted and advanced with a motion previously for us to develop a prioritization framework so that we could be accountable to every public dollar that is used for infrastructure improvements, that those would go to the highest priority projects. I don't think any of us disagree with that. I know the mayor voted for that previously, as well as a number of the council members. And that's just an opportunity for us to show to the public, yes, we are committed to maximizing public benefit to reach our city goals, that safety is paramount, quality of life for the maximum amount of people is paramount. And we may find that Sunset does not reach the thresholds that are on that prioritization framework, but that is yet to come before us. And I do agree with your argument that the dollars being set aside for this public use should be committed to this public use. But that's where I think we should draw the line. And I would like to see in your motion or as a commitment from our council that we would make a commitment to retain the budget as what it is. What's the total budget that's been allotted for this? 1 million. So it's very common for projects to go beyond their budgeted amount. And I think it would be appropriate to make a commitment that we would, whether it's being creative, I like the recommendation from the gentleman around protected curbs, right? There may be some more adaptable nature-based trails in this corridor. It's a unique area. But I think that it would behoove our integrity and our sense of equity to make sure that we stay within the budget, especially if there's a risk of this project coming back to us after the prioritization framework has been developed, where we might have to consider, oh, we need more funds for Sunset, right? And it falls outside of that prioritization framework. Maybe you can see how that might cause a conflict, or that might not be for the public's best interest. So $1 million to go towards this project, I think could be absolutely transformative for the area. And furthermore, there was a comment about lights. And I think it's really important for us to, and I'm so proud of the work that our council has done, because guess what? We have dollars available for more lighting, for more solar lights. And we're about to launch our pilot program within the next couple weeks and months here. So Sunset might be a really prime eligible location for our next round of lighting, especially if we're thinking about complete corridors, right? So I totally see the vision for Sunset Drive, and I put on my, high-level council hat, and I want to make sure that our procedures are in line with our values. And for me, equity and making sure that resources are fairly distributed throughout the city is really important, and that's where a prioritization framework comes in. I don't know where Sunset Drive would fall on that, but I completely agree with you that it's very important to the community, and we have the funding available, and we should complete our projects. That is also an important value that I have. But what do you say to the point, and would you consider really making sure and codifying it in a motion that we would limit the budget? And if there is, if that means that we have to do a lower cost version of a sidewalk, that's what we have to do. Are you expecting that the project will go through regardless of the cost, or are you committed to sticking within that $1 million budget? Yes, please.
I'm okay sticking within the $1 million limit because I understand that there are a lot of nuances that come to the word sidewalk within this community. There is an ever-changing landscape when you go from one end of Melrose to the next, and I think that we had actually had this discussion when we originally approved this, and that is that we need to be open to the DG projects or putting in berms to try and create a different type of sidewalk or walking path. But I think the idea and concept of this is to make it a safe walking path and a safe area for pedestrians so they can traverse and be able to do that. But I am open to that and committed to keeping it under $1 million. Now, I don't know, or keeping it at $1 million. I don't know if the costs have changed in that time frame. I mean, that was what, last year? So I don't know if the projected costs have changed since then.
So we looked at it today, and I got a report back from the engineering department that they feel like the $1 million will cover what we need to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you be willing to update your motion to reflect that, right? That with this budgeted $1 million, right? And that I appreciate that you're bringing this forward. We have so many projects, and we're about to develop a prioritization framework for that. It would be really hard for us to do business if any one of us comes back and continues to ask for more resources. So I just want to make sure that, we can illustrate that commitment to that.
I am committed to doing that, and I will put that in the motion. My only concern with that is that if there is a genuine hiccup in a cost of incomplete, if they're not able to be completed, if it's in an area that does have a highly trafficked position. I mean, there are different areas that slow down, there are different areas that speed up. If it's in an area that would necessitate the completion in that spot, we can bring that particular piece back to discuss for additional funding.
I appreciate that. We might also have challenges with contractors, right, and supply chain. There's all sorts of reasons why costs could increase. But for transparency purposes, I think it'd be important to bring those back to us.
Yeah.
And, you know, if
makes
you
sense.
could include that, then I could absolutely vote on the item tonight. Otherwise, I was considering abstaining because I don't yet have information of the prioritization framework.
Is that an amendment you're asking for? So a friendly amendment?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll agree to that.
That sounds great. Those are my main concerns, and I think that, like you said, this area can be is going to be very adaptable. It's not going to be your standard, right? Like some of our federal grant funds that we've gotten for sidewalk projects, they're very standardized, right? This is going to be being able to bring the best possible options to the community with the budget that we've been able to allot for it, and I think it will go very far for them.
Councilmember O'Donnell?
Yeah, I mean, the comments I was going to make are very similar to what was just asked, just as far as the type of sidewalks. I know that we had discussed the challenges that are faced, especially in this area, not just with the right-of-way, but the materials that we can actually use on certain areas. And I think that our residents will understand, based on the sidewalks and walking paths that already exist there, that the terrain at times does not really lend you to a 3-foot wide sidewalk. The other thing I'd like to make sure, though, is that there are areas that have sidewalks that I've seen the dirt and the leaves and everything overflow and shrink the actual ability to walk on that path. So maintenance of not just that corridor, but maintenance of sidewalks that I feel like have been neglected for a little while should probably be cleaned up so it's an easier walking path to go down. I do want to just recognize the points that both the Deputy Mayor and Councilmember Contreras have made. Even when I brought this forward, I don't want to negate the need, because I know that there are a lot of underserved populations in our community that have been disadvantaged, and there are areas, I've walked them, you know, I mean, there's still power lines that are underground or above ground, and every time I see Congressman Levin, I want to know where the funding is to get them underneath the ground. I've walked the sidewalks that literally go from a sidewalk down to 1.5 feet of mud, you know. So I don't want to negate the idea that those don't exist and that it's not a priority in other areas as well. So I respect that, and I appreciate the comments of bringing that forward. And I understand it won't be upzoned, but it is way more traffic even without upzoning than it ever was anticipated to be. But that's all. I mean, I appreciate the support on it. And I would look forward to having a further discussion about lights on Sunset in the future. So if we can put that on the agenda with consensus, I'd be great with that. But those are all the comments I have.
Councilmember Contreras.
Fantastic. Yeah, totally open to having the discussion about lighting on Sunset. I think we need to continue putting more resources to lights. And one of the things too, so I'm excited about this. I think there's a great opportunity for us to commit to creating these amazing urban rural trails throughout the city, and this could potentially be a pilot program for that. And I'm going to tell you something here that I would love to see. I would love to see the creation of this sidewalk/trail to connect in a safe manner to the inland rail trail across the freeway. If we're looking at Crestview, what used to be Crestview Elementary, it's just really difficult. I know we have Caltrans, so we'll have to work with different agencies, but I would love to see us draw a long-term vision of how we can actually connect this investment that we're going to be making, which I think is a good one, to the inland rail trail that's going to be completed along that Civic Center Sprinter Station area. So that would be super awesome. The second thing is right next to there is Paula Vista Park. And then we also have the Sprinter Station. So if we could really focus on having a long-term view, not just doing a one-time thing that's really good and we're like, yes, we got this sidewalk, walking trail, but then to take that next step forward in the thinking of how we can then connect this to some of those more amazing amenities. And then potentially, Civic Center Drive could really turn into a much more safer corridor for people to transverse from this area all the way to our downtown using a bicycle, walking. We need a lot more trees. I've walked from the Sprinter Station at Civic Center Drive to this building. It is a crispy walk because there is no shade. So I would love for us to focus a little bit more attention on this corridor.
Okay, we have Deputy Mayor Melendez.
I just wanted to confirm, Mayor, that you, as the seconder of the motion, supported the reflections that were updated regarding the budget for this project.
Yes, I do. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Please cast your votes. The motion passes unanimously. It brings us to, we have one more oral communication speaker this evening. Kimberly Cross-Purdy, like to be heard.
Well, Happy New Year, Council. I'm sure y'all excited to see me. Councilmember O'Donnell and Fox, you don't know me yet, but you'll learn to love me like the other three do. I wanted to say first and foremost, being a resident of Vista for over 47 years, being a homeowner in Vista for the last 29 years as of January, I'm actually excited by some of the things I've heard tonight. The big thing I heard tonight was safety. And this has been a big thing for me and my neighbors. I live on Grapevine Lane, which, as you know, is where the most beautiful park in Vista is, Belle Williamson Park. Myself and my neighbors worked very hard in 2018, giving up nights and weekends to help work with the current city council to make the park what it is, which is just a beautiful place to be. That being said, we have several issues that have been repeatedly brought up, and including during the time we were working with the council during the workshops regarding the safety of the park. Most recently, on our Blessed New Year, the park was left open all night. We had fireworks going off. And if you've ever seen the riparian habitat, you know it's, as you said, Karina, it's a little crispy. And it is right now in a red flag season, waiting to go up. And not only would we lose this beautiful $4.5 million park that we all fought so hard for, but all the houses in that area. We do not have the proper support within the structure of the city in regards to our rangers. I am very disappointed in the things that have been spoken to me during the safety issues that I've personally encountered at the park. I saw Deputy Mayor Katie here at Jingle Terrace, and I expressed that to her. I've expressed it also to Mayor John Franklin regarding the issues of some of the flippant remarks from the Rangers. During the New Year's Eve celebrations, we called the Sheriff's Department. One of my neighbors was told to call the council. At that which point, I text John at 11 p.m. at night because I needed to be heard. I wanted my neighbors to be heard. So I would really appreciate if we could, I know the Belle Williamson project is all done, but we really need to continue the work we've been doing. We need to protect it. We talk about the funding for these projects. We need to really look at the fact that $4.5 million, none of us looked at that as just a drop in the hat. And we have continued since 2018 to continue to protect that park. And so I'm just asking for us to be heard. And that was something that was mentioned tonight too. You know, and all these issues we're talking about, those people want to be heard. We want to be heard too, and we want to be a participant in the solutions. So on that, if there's committees, if there's someplace you need me to volunteer, I know that these three know where I live. I live on the same street as the park.
Thank you. Okay, that's going to bring us to the end of oral communications, close the opportunity for public comment at this time, and we will now go to comments from staff and council members. Any comments from the city clerk's office? Any more from the city attorney this evening?
I have a couple quick announcements, Mayor.
Manager.
The skate park at 400 North Santa Fe, which is at the corner of Orange Avenue and North Santa Fe, this is the advanced park, is closed for fencing repair work until January 19th. If they're finished early, we will reopen the park as soon as possible. On the pickleball front, the pickleball courts at Pringle Terrace Park are reopening tomorrow. We will then move on to the maintenance of the pickleball courts at Thibodeau Park, which will be closed January 27th through February 2nd for the resurfacing there. And lastly, a reminder that city offices are closed on Monday, the 20th of January for Martin Luther King Day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Fox.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to remind everyone that we do have the Homelessness Strategic Plan Workshop on the 23rd at 5:30 here in these chambers. So if you really enjoyed our conversation earlier about our homelessness strategic plan and what we're doing about it, please come back and voice your opinions there. I would like to echo my previous council members' statements that today is Taco Tuesday, and that if you're not getting tacos here in town, you're missing out. So. And last, I just wanted to thank my beautiful wife for letting me serve on this council. That's all. Thank you.
Councilmember O'Donnell.
You learn quick. Have we already noticed the pickleballers at Thibodeau that it is going to be shut down for resurfacing and maintenance? And if not, can we please put very large signs up?
There are signs up, my understanding, but I'll confirm that
Any
tomorrow.
confusion on the reason why those courts are not available?
Yes.
At the time in which they're not available.
We've also spoken to the neighbors.
Okay, I just want to make sure they all know I got their back. So, I had my first Encina meeting. Nothing notable to report coming out of there. I have my first RISWA meeting coming up this Thursday. Cal Cities, I was joined by our city manager, assistant city manager, and Councilmember Fox. They introduced Mr. Fox as a newly elected, so congratulations. They talked about the Tijuana River Valley and the federal funding. $250 million of the remaining balance has been allocated. However, the downside is it's about a 5-year project to complete, so they're going to continue to have ongoing issues in the River Valley, which is very unfortunate to hear. They talked about the 3 E's, which are educate, engage, and elevate, which led to a large discussion about local control and what that actually means and what we're fighting for at Cal Cities. So I just wanted to up my commitment to making sure that this council knows that I will be fighting for local control on a lot of issues like we did at Green Oak Ranch, like we've done in other similar circumstances, including Palomar Airport. The other thing is just for all the people suffering or that want to donate to the LA fires, they have, before you donate any clothing or try and buy any water or food resources, a lot of the places that are taking donations are at capacity, so please make sure you call or speak to somebody before you try and purchase or send in a donation. I know that they can always use food, but just make sure that before you do that, you call the agencies that you're working with to try and get that done. Beyond that, thank you to the residents that showed up tonight. I really do appreciate and always take into account public feedback on issues, and I'm grateful when you're always here. I want to thank the council for the dialogue, as we have always done. We don't always agree, but at least we can have a respectful dialogue and discussion along the line, and thank you for supporting the sidewalks. And to my beautiful wife, Allie, thank you so much for all you do. I know that you are at home. And we are due in May, as I've mentioned before, with another child, so she's extra special to me right now. So thank you for allowing me to do this. You all have a great night, and happy Tuesday.
Councilmember Contreras.
All right, so tomorrow is Wednesday, and that means that Guerreras en Acción por un Vista Limpio will be out in District 1, the volunteer crew picking up trash every single Wednesday with team captain Jovita Serafin. So if anybody wants to join and volunteer with them, you can find them on social media, or you can contact me and I can put you in communication with the team captain. Just want to share in regards to North County Transit District. I am in the running for vice chair of North County Transit District. The nomination has been approved. It has to go to a vote for complete approval, and that will happen very soon. So if anybody ever does have any questions regarding the Breeze Bus, Sprinter, the Coaster, please contact me. I love to have communication with people here in the city and throughout the service area for North County Transit District, because I know that there's a lot that we can do to make it better, especially as we have a lot of youth with the Youth Opportunity Pass. If you're 18 and under, you can ride free. It's been very popular. And lastly, regarding North County Transit District, it's very exciting. There's, even with the work from home phenomenon, we are seeing that ridership is 80% of pre-pandemic levels, and it continues to grow very strong. Just south of us, MTS actually has the #1 light rail system in the nation. So there's a lot of folks that want to utilize public transit, about over 100,000 every single month on the Sprinter, over 400,000 on the buses. So please send me your feedback, come join a meeting, and help us create a better system for everybody to make sure that people can connect whether or not they are able to drive. And also, last thing on that is there is a microtransit pilot program that is scheduled to come to Vista, and I've really advocated for North County Transit District to include some of the mobile parks. I've had a lot of interest from constituents in those mobile parks that want to be able to get to the Sprinter that is just a little bit of ways from them, but they can't make the walk or don't have a way to get there, and this microtransit can actually help. So I look forward to giving more information to everybody here when it gets closer for us to launch that pilot program.
Deputy Mayor Melendez.
Thank you, Mayor. Not much more from me, but I do want to say Happy Tuesday and Happy New Year. It's wonderful to be back and be in 2025. And I also want to say thank you to everyone who attended and participated in the Seroptimus 19th Annual Human Trafficking Awareness Walk, including Mayor Franklin and District Attorney Summer Steffen. It was wonderful to hear from her and to connect with the community on this important issue. And I hope everyone has a wonderful night, and we'll see you soon.
I want to start my comments with a big shout out to our deputies who executed an operation where they effected 11 arrests about 1 week ago today, an operation they've been working on since May, where they arrested people who were living in encampments. That wasn't in the press release. The people that were arrested were living in encampments, dealing drugs to other people in the encampments and dealing drugs to our narcotics deputies at the street level. So that was a really important arrest. Demonstrates the connection between the narcotic drugs traffic and the ongoing problem with homelessness encampments and people who are trapped in a cycle of living addicted to drugs without shelter. And it exposes some of the problems that we have getting people off the streets because of their addiction. So very important work, and I want to thank our deputies for those important arrests and keep up the good work. City is seeking applicants for various upcoming boards and commissions like the ones we discussed tonight, particularly if you live in districts 2 or 3. Business owners can apply for openings on the Central Vista Business Improvement District Advisory Board. For more information or to apply, visit vista.gov/commissions. The application deadline is February 7th. Registration for the city's Spring Leadership Academy is underway. This free program provides a behind-the-scenes look at Vista's government. The spring session runs from March 12th to May 7th. That's a few hours every Thursday night, right? Wednesday night. And it's an 8-week program. A great opportunity to make some friends and get involved in the community for those who haven't done it yet and learn all about the city of Vista. And the Vista Sheriff's Office and the City of Vista are pleased to offer the Rise Above Academy for Vista youth in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades and their parents. This free program is offered weekly from January 30th through March 27th at the Linda Rhodes Rec Center. It introduces participants to law enforcement programs and services while covering various topics. To register, visit vista.gov/riseabove. And I would also like to say thank you to my beautiful wife, Shauna, for allowing me to serve. And she's probably in bed and asleep by now, but I'm on the way home. We're adjourned.